Welcome, Poggers and everybody else, to the Divephoria State podcast. I'm your host, Atlus. I am joined by Vedius, by Azael, and by Chronicler. Chronicler, he's been in this room before, but these other two have not. Gentlemen, welcome to Korea. How long has it been? How long have you been here so far? Vedius, we'll start with you.
Yeah.
Sure. I've been here since 3 o'clock Korea time.
What time is it now?
It's 8
Like
o'clock,
8
I think,
o'clock?
something like that.
All right.
I had Korean
Yeah, it's 8.
barbecue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was very tasty. Like, beef is so good.
Oh, you had the Korean beef barbecue?
So
That's
we
the
went
goods.
to a place that was like a 20-minute walk away.
Mhm.
Apparently walking is not that common in Seoul. I walked
That's
from
all
the
we do.
That was
Okay, so like I
that was
walked
a little
from
extra
the
doubt
hotel
right there.
to the KBBQ place, and there
Yeah.
was like one pavement throughout the whole route.
One pavement.
Oh, okay. Pavement maybe not as common.
Because like
Walking very
we were
common.
walking on the road a lot. That's what I mean. You know what I mean?
Are they like smaller roads?
Yeah, there were a lot of
Yeah,
like
yeah.
small roads.
Oh, yeah.
That's
makes sense.
for foot traffic. That's not for cars.
Really? There were many cars on those
Oh, yeah,
roads.
they do.
It is theoretically, but basically, so
That's
there-
not for cars. They go there anyway.
we can actually take you through a really cute realization that we had when Chronicler arrived in Korea, and that was that in certain countries, certain things rule the roads. In Australia, kangaroos mostly.
That's big spiders.
Wombats are actually the most dangerous because they'll flip your car and walk
What about
away.
those spiders? Spawn told me there's a spider that crawls up into the vents in your car because it's colder there,
Yeah.
and then they leap out from the vents. And I
No,
was
they
like,
get- they
you
don't
could
leap
not
out, they get
convince
spat
me
out.
to go to
They
a
get
country.
spat out
You
of
could
the
not
vent.
convince me to go to a country where this is a thing. I used to think.
I'll turn the aircon on.
Yeah,
and then-
people used to be like, wow, we should really go to Australia for illegal. And I was like, yeah, hell yeah, we should. And then I hear that story, and I'm like, no, we
Shoot a
shouldn't
funnel
go
into
there.
your eye. That sounds great.
I've never been jumped by a spider while in Korea, so you're safe.
Yeah.
Here in
Wait,
that
so
regard.
tell me the
Why do you
Chronicler
think I'm
story.
in
What
Yeah,
happened
right.
to him?
So there was a story that was kind of going on, and basically we were talking about the things that rule the road.
Yeah.
And in the Netherlands, it's
Bikes.
bicycles.
They're the apex predator of the
no,
road.
that's right. Yeah.
In Korea, the apex predator of the road is ajumas, old women. They rule the
Korean
road.
grandmas.
I've
Yeah.
seen a grandmother cross 8 lanes of traffic. 8 lanes. And she didn't even look. She just held up her hand like this, saying, no, it is my time. Oh, my God. It's
good you learn
incredible.
early.
Zebra
That's an
crossings.
absolute flex. I'm not gonna lie.
100%.
That is
Zebra
Yeah.
crossings in this country. So
Oh, no, it's a theory. So
It's a
zebra
theory,
crossings.
because in the UK, if someone's on a zebra crossing, you have to stop. It's
Oh, yeah.
illegal to
Australia
drive.
too,
like-
yeah.
And yeah, so in Korea that doesn't seem to be
zebra
the case.
crossings?
I mean, it's like indicating. It's like
Oh,
you
okay. We
should
do
do
not
it,
call
but
it
you
that.
don't
That-
really.
Yeah, Dutch as
Yeah.
well. Zebra
Yeah.
crossing.
Yeah. No, zebra.
It looks like a
That's the first time I've
zebra
ever
that
heard that term.
Put it on the
Really?
ground.
Yeah.
Huh.
Already learning.
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
Yeah. How long
Well,
have you been here?
so our call time was 6:15. I got into my hotel room just after 6. So I've had lots of time to settle in.
So you've discovered that you don't have any adapters for any of your power products.
Yeah, I just found that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not the same adapter as
Yeah,
in America.
Yeah, was told. American plugs. I literally unpacked my adapters. I unpacked my. Well, I'm like, well, I don't need them. It's American plugs. Great. Okay.
He was already jet lagged
Unpacked.
before he left America. We're doomed.
I was casting TFT this weekend,
Yeah.
and then I woke up at 3:30 a.m. to go to the airport. So I got 2 hours of sleep after being up a full day. Slept 0 hours on the plane, by the way. So like you know, we're doing a little draft on the plane, right? I'm like, I'm gonna go blue. I'm gonna draft sleep on the plane. But unfortunately, the other passengers first picked Screaming Baby on red side.
Oh no.
And it was an absolute hard counter. I got smashed in lane. I didn't sleep at all.
You shouldn't have first picked sleep, dude.
Why
That's
was I
always a
thinking?
You
mistake.
have to
R5
Yeah,
You were
have to-
thinking you could follow up
I
sleep to answer that with like some headphones and a blinder. What do they
Yeah.
answer with?
Where was
Bad
your
food.
B? Yeah, where's
Yeah.
your B for earplugs?
Well, I
think
have
they
noise
banned
canceling
earplugs.
headphones.
Wasn't
They
it-
just don't make them this powerful, apparently. It was also
It's
really
a skill difference, man.
Yeah, it was really weird on the plane too, because every time they would go, they would have 2 meal options, and one would be like really nice, and the other would be horrible. And I'm in the back of my section, and so they'd be coming around. They're like, "Would you like a beautiful fruit medley with a nice omelet and some fresh toast? Or would you like some yogurt that I spilled on my socks?
But by the way, we're all out of the first option.
Yeah. So I'm afraid to inform you.
Like, oh, unfortunately, we only have the socks.
But good news, if you want more of the yogurt.
It's just like,
Yeah, my flight was great. I sat next to my manager. We watched Lord of the Rings synced up.
Oh, that is
That's cute.
adorable.
I also watched John Wick and I watched Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, Dungeons
my-
and Dragons is so good.
It was
That
a
was
great
a
movie.
That was
really
actually
good
a good
film.
movie.
It was
Yeah.
an enjoyable
Legit,
movie.
really good.
I didn't get all of the references, but since I've recently been playing Baldur's Gate, I had a great
It was
time and I got
super
a lot
funny
more of the
too.
references.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Both as a standalone and as a D&D movie.
I
When I saw
personally
the
think
ads
Chris
for it-
Pine can do no wrong.
When I saw that for it, I thought it was going to be so bad.
Same.
Oh, yeah,
I
like
agree.
100%.
I was,
Yeah.
whoa, this is garbage. And then I watched it, I was like, whoa, okay.
I'm having a good
But John
run.
Yeah.
Wick, I didn't know it had Donnie Yen in it, and I'm such a Donnie Yen
Yeah.
fan.
Yeah.
He's so good.
The new
Yes.
John Wick?
Yeah,
I thought that movie was trash.
that's fine. But I know what
Well,
it
it
is.
depends.
and
It depends
Just
what you're
blocking
expecting.
bullets?
Yeah.
If you're expecting zero story, all good fight choreography,
yeah,
that's what
because
you
that's
get.
why I
But
love
was
the
it good
Expendables.
fight choreography with just the bulletproof vest? They're just going like this the whole time, walking around.
It's cheesy, but I think it works.
I think
like
John
it.
Wick 3 was probably better for like the fight scenes because I think
I was not
Keanu
about
was
the
a little bit
bulletproof
younger.
jackets.
But
I just
Yeah.
watch anything with Donnie Yen in it. I love. He's so
Fair.
amazing. He's so talented.
what was it? Ip Man?
Yeah, Ip
Oh,
Man.
God,
all
that-
the Mans are really good.
I mean,
Those
I
movies were
studied
all
Wing
good.
Chun for many years. It was
Mhm.
a great. It was very. And they're so accurate in the Ip Man movies as well. It's fantastic.
Wasn't he like a master or
Yeah,
something
he's
like that?
he's
Just himself.
he's an expert in like all the crazy thing is like I don't know his full history, but like I'm pretty sure he never featured in like English speaking movies because he couldn't speak English. And then I heard him in John Wick, and I don't know, it was insane.
But he was in the was it like a Triple X movie or something that he was in randomly out of nowhere?
he?
Yeah, it was just Donnie Yen, just like in
Well,
a
then
leather
maybe I'm
jacket, looking like a
talking out my-
badass, and, like shooting people. I'm like, but he's got like all these martial arts skills and stuff. He's just shooting
He's
people. What's
very
going
cool.
on?
Yeah.
I mean, you can walk, but you still like to drive sometimes.
Yeah,
don't you?
exactly, exactly.
The people from The Raid. I don't know if you guys seen that one.
The Raid is
Yeah,
amazing.
they had
Yeah.
it in, I think it was John Wick 2 as well.
Mm.
Great movies.
That,
Yeah.
all of them. We should probably talk about League of Legends at
Yeah,
some point.
because
good
otherwise
one.
we're
What are
going
we
to
here
stay
for?
in the room. How long? But Azael and I were talking about this, by the way. How long is the Pog State normally? Like, how long is an average episode?
We've been creeping up because of this.
I think
happening a
the
lot.
episodes go for an hour and a half, but that's
Okay.
probably with us sitting here filming for 3 hours and them having to cut out all the bit
Vedius
that they're not
was
supposed to
thanks,
put in.
Ian.
We can go matchup by matchup, and we're gonna get through this in an hour. And I'm like, Vedius, I can tell you this is not gonna happen.
I was
can
like,
tell
we
you
can
right
just bang
now,
those out.
there's
I was
no
like-
chance.
I was
no
like,
way.
we can easily bang that out in like.
My
30
wife
minutes.
asked me when I'm getting home, and I'm like, it might be tomorrow or it might be late tomorrow. We'll see. I have high hopes for tomorrow, though. But let's get into it. Let's first quickly cover what happened previously to get you guys caught up if you are unsure of, or if you didn't watch the plane. I don't know why you didn't watch the planes. It's real silly. You should
What about
just
the
go and do
World's
that.
Qualifier Series?
Or the World's Qualifiers. So, Azael, you've probably got some eulogizing to do, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so much negativity about Golden Guardians, so I just really want to talk about some of the positives that they had.
Uh-huh.
I just really want to summarize. Yeah, and we can move on.
Oh,
Short
and sweet.
Damn, bro. I was gonna be
think that's
humble,
about-
I was just gonna keep my head down and be like, BDS pretty good, but he was like, nope, I'm taking him out the back.
It was rough.
It
we
was
went
rough.
to LoL Park and we watched it live, and it was rough.
I gave Sam a
didn't
hug
go to
on
LoL
his way
Park.
out, and
I
he was
did
not
watch
very
it live.
happy. Yeah.
And I was sad for a lot of it. Very sad. Do you ever? Well, actually, they don't. No, I'm gonna look at you. I'm not gonna look at them because they
Okay.
don't know the pain. They don't know
Of
what
what,
it's like.
sucking?
Yeah.
They do. They
I
still
was an
remember
LPL
20
caster
They
in
still remember
2015.
2018.
Yeah.
They lost to Vitality and Cloud9.
They still had teams in the quarterfinals.
True. I mean, they do win a lot.
Yeah, we had KT.
Yeah.
Was KT the only one?
And also, their
2018.
play-ins team last year literally won the whole thing.
Exactly. It's not comparable.
Yeah.
I had to watch our support pick Nico, and then walk mid lane, not even line with the other minions, and die.
Yeah.
And he had a really good year this year. It was so sad
That
to
was
watch.
the weirdest draft as well. My God, that
All
was
the
the one where it was like
drafts.
we were thinking like it's the Belveth support debut. It's happening. Chovi's technology is here, and then it was like Nico support. And we're like, oh yeah, that used to work.
Yeah,
And then it, you know,
even that game, that was the game that they were winning, and I still never believed that they were gonna win because they had like AP Nico support as the only engage against Azir Ezreal, right? That series was pain. But
It was so funny to me because I sat there and I looked like, oh wow, BDS is drafting the same thing that they've drafted literally every game in their entire lives.
Yeah.
It was just
It was the same.
more BDS, and I was like, I'm a little
Yeah.
disappointed that you guys haven't changed, but you know what? If it wins you games, go ahead, win games.
Well, it turns
if it
out
means more
that-
Garen, I'm down.
That's what I was gonna say. It turns out that people just don't know what Garen does, based on all of play-ins. Like,
He
how
does
long
this,
is this?
and then a roundy round.
So-
that is what he does. That's it. That's all he does.
What I will say is that like Adam had a pretty significant impact in Europe, and he is the reason Europe played Olaf. I don't know if he had, because like you remember Olaf became like surprisingly meta for a while.
Yeah,
in
Broken
Europe.
Blade was in
Yeah.
there. A number of top laners were
he
playing.
was
it.
the
Yeah.
reason why Europe played Olaf.
Yeah.
Like and it was funny because I've forgotten Vitality's top laner's name, and it's really annoying me. He's Korean. Photon, yes, Photon. I'm like, I haven't cast it for so long, and his brain.
I'm like, it's Chronicler's time to shine.
no one took
Vitality's
Olaf
so bad that
seriously.
Vedius disowned them and no longer considers them an LCK team.
You can have them back.
He's like, they're a Korean team. Their top laner is
10th
yours.
place, Korean team Vitality.
He was not the problem, okay?
But he actually picked up Olaf not long after Adam, and then everyone, for some reason, like Photon played it, and they're like, "Oh, it must be good."
They
but
copied
yeah,
his homework. They copied the Korean player's homework. I
But
guess.
yeah,
that's
it's
really valuable to have a player like that, right? Like that actually pushes forward the meta. I think that.
But the thing that people couldn't get used to was just the fact that he leaves lane a lot. Like he's the type of player
Yeah.
that will just sit in. Like he did it as well. He ran lethal tempo Darius with the intent to kill the enemy jungler level 1, and he just sat on his red buff, and he wasn't there, but that was his plan. And he just does these things, and he finds ways to get around vision. He'll like they pay it. That's why they did the whole flash thing at level 1 to get the gank top right, because they
that
just
was
pay
great.
attention to where you put your wards at level 1, and they have a bunch of funny level 1 strats. They were also the people that did the. I don't think they were originally, because I think Korea did it first, the Scion thing, where you
Yeah.
do the full clear.
that
into
was
bot
the
side into
T1's
dive.
challenger team.
T1's, yeah, we had
And
to watch that
they
3 times in a
cheesed
row.
themselves a playoffs game and pissed me off. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was like, this team
so
is not
mad.
good. Why did they win? And it's because they just cheese ball lane
Well,
every game.
How long ago did they do that? Because people were doing the sign execute stuff, maybe not.
That
into
was the
bot
first
dive,
time we saw
but
it
people
anyway.
literally were doing that during lane swap meta. Like
Yeah,
years
but it was-
ago.
yeah.
But it wasn't
Oh,
the
yeah.
And then it
full-
came back.
full-on
Yeah,
strat.
yeah.
But people were doing like playing side on
Similar
top,
stuff, yeah.
and then they would execute to enemy.
No, but like this whole like
Enemy
it
red
was the
buff, right?
diving
Yeah.
bot
With
at
the
level
Ruby
1 to
crystal.
like stop
With
while
the
they were
whole
level
thing,
1
yeah.
still, right?
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
like if it worked, it was really good. If it didn't work, it was really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was just that type of top
kind of like
laner.
BDS.
But yeah, it was so funny. I saw like
they got it together, man.
Just
Yeah.
in time.
Team
Yeah.
Wales though, they were good. I like them.
That team was really
I stole
fun.
them and I said that they were my home country. We just removed the H.
I saw a lot of Welsh flags.
yeah. Woohoo! Team Wales. Well, they lost in the rugby, so we had to
Just,
fix something.
The whale with the kilt.
yeah. Okay, Scottish. Okay, that's not like that.
You said yeah.
At first, I was like giving the benefit of the doubt, and I was like, "Hang on a
Thank
minute."
you.
If you'd said dragons, I would have been like,
no.
"Sure."
Kilts, and it's been approved.
It's towards the top of the island, you know. It's
Yeah.
about where they all are,
Come
right?
on.
Yeah.
I think the
There's a
Hang on,
dragon
let's
the
have a
kilt.
look.
Yeah.
We got it here somewhere.
It's right
Where-
here. Yeah.
Yeah,
there's-
yeah, there we go.
There's Wales and there's Scotland.
No,
Very different
it
places.
just has United Kingdom.
Okay.
So I don't know. It's all the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
the overarching thing though for me is that the play-ins was so much, and I've always enjoyed watching play-ins, but it felt like the best play-ins in years. I feel like the format change was really good.
Yeah.
And almost every series felt like it was at least moderately competitive.
Yeah.
And then especially the second half was like taking out the LPL and the LCK teams. I think was a really, really good choice.
Yeah.
A little bit again, maybe before, because they're the other
You can
Team
you
that
can
may
a little
add-
bit of
yeah,
Gambit.
so
You can add a little bit of Gambit.
I
here
think
if you want
Gambit
to.
like a mini redemption arc.
Yeah,
I
I
thought
like
it was
that.
cool. They looked.
I almost put him in my pick'ems, then I was like, oh, but it's not like 4 years ago when they were like super
Yeah, I
good
went
and like
with,
beating everyone.
Hey
and,
man,
like,
if they take out a top LPL team for Europe again, I'm down. You know what I
yeah.
mean?
I'm down with that as well. Don't you worry.
Because I think that in their first series they looked really, really nervous against Loud. I think that was, and then they got boomed, and then afterwards they slowly got better and better.
Yeah.
Slater, who looked really bad on day one, and Paulette actually stepped it up. Was cool. I think that the unfortunate thing, and that's maybe the only thing about play-ins, was a little bit rough. I felt like PSG and BDS looked like they were both
Best two teams.
Yeah, the best two teams.
right,
yeah.
but I
There
think
should have been a lower bracket.
But that said, I think GAM would not be too far off either of those.
A
based on
lower,
how they
lower
grew
bracket?
into play.
Almost like,
Another lower bracket.
you could almost have like you have like a seed for like the finals or whatever that those two teams play or whatever, and then you go down to the bottom for the second seed or something.
It's always about
Yeah.
striking that balance,
Right,
though,
it
right?
is.
Between like
But it could
how
be
much
too long.
play-ins do you want? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I agree with you. It was one of those situations where, because I know why it happened. It's because after the Golden Guardian series, BDS were convinced Ezreal was the AD carry, and then they just wouldn't play Kai'Sa, and then they were like, we don't need to play Kai'Sa, and then Wales was like, okay.
Wasn't that was Cagel's take, wasn't it? He was like they don't think that Crownie can play Kai'Sa.
Yeah, but
like,
it was well,
there's no way to carry that can't play Kai'Sa.
Yeah, but it was also just that they had such a priority on this like Ezreal Azir,
Yeah.
big range, and I think that like other
Because
teams
Golden
got
Guards
better
are playing
playing
such
rates.
low engage, and if you play that kind of stuff into low engage, you can't die ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
And
think
they're
it is
3-0
really
as
good
well,
against
right?
that. Yeah.
So makes
But
sense that you get a lot of
Kai'Sa
confidence.
was looking good.
Yep.
Yeah.
With
I'm
like
so
three
sad I
different
didn't choose
builds,
her as my
I
most
think.
played.
Yeah, I just love how you can just ultimate bravery that champion.
Yeah.
And it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, it turns out if you build a support, like a ward stone, and you
She's like,
get a
she's
BF sword, and then
I reckon
you,
she's overtaken Ezreal, maybe, or she's close with the number of different builds that she's had over her
Ooh, could
history.
be. Yeah.
Ezreal's had a lot of jungle.
Yeah,
items.
he's had a lot of
He's
jungle
had a lot.
In fact, whenever there's a new jungle item, I think Ezreal
Yeah,
has
the
been
jungle
meta with it.
changes
just
on the new
removes
patch,
it.
and
Every
everyone's
time,
like, Ezreal?
Because he used the Bernie blue
Elder
thing, right?
Lizard.
Yeah,
Elder
that's
Lizard,
the one.
Blue
and then
Ezreal.
the Spellglaive one.
There was the
Yeah.
I can't
smite
remember what
mid
it's
thing
called.
that he
Yeah.
did.
That was with the Spellglaive one.
Oh,
And
right,
Wriggles,
right.
of course, from back in the
Yeah.
day, and all
Good
that
old
sort of
Wriggles.
stuff.
He
Had a
was a
lot of-
Wriggles
He was a
user,
Wriggles
wasn't he?
abuser. He was the OG. He was the
Ezreal.
one.
It was beautiful how Wriggle, I'm pretty sure it could just randomly execute minions. Like
Yeah, it
you could
did,
just
yeah.
one-shot them.
And that Mystic Shot felt real good.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, so do we want to move on? Is it okay to move on, Chronicler, and
play-ins?
talk about a little bit of
I know
bit
why you're
of
looking at
Swiss
me. You're-
action? Well, because
the
you were
boss.
asking about the Gam
Because you look
thing. like,
sad.
No, I'm perfectly happy. Yeah, I think we
the
covered
the only
play-ins nicely.
remaining take, because we were talking about how
Did
the
we?
play-ins was really good.
I wouldn't go that far.
I do
Covered
want to, like, there's a
everything.
bit of an elephant in the fact that, like, we've seen a lot of teams multiple times in the play-ins, and they just hang out in the play-ins and go home, and it's just a bit sad. Like the DFM story with,
Hey
like,
man, Europe made it out. That was a big deal for us.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I mean,
It was touch and go there for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought BDS was going to get swept by PSG.
I also thought they were
100%.
going to lose to
game one,
PSG.
game two were pretty one-sided, and
Yeah.
then game three they had a strong early game. Like they had the first couple of dragons, they were playing the Caitlyn stuff
Yeah.
bot lane. They were looking good in that game, and especially based off of the first two, I was like, wow, they're actually going to get swept.
Yep.
But I mean, I do think one of my takeaways is that people, and this is a frustration that I've had for years in League, but people seem to really kind of look on the negative side of everything, where I had this tweet a couple years ago where a lot of people agreed, a lot of people really didn't agree, but it was basically, the Faker's Dead outplay, right? Like that is the most famous play of all time in League. Both Shens have ultimate, neither Shen ults. And then immediately after, Faker walks into the Nexus towers and executes.
I remember you and I had a conversation
And-
about this for like 3 hours.
and
Like,
it's-
I
and
think
it's like-
6 months ago.
and it's like it's funny, right? But if that happened today, my take is essentially that people would have just flamed it. It wouldn't actually be celebrated as this great play. People would only be focusing on the fact that these idiot Shens never ulted. Look at this dumb mid laner running
can
down
hear
and
this.
dying after.
Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say
Yeah.
that there would probably be like a vocal community that would find ways to pick it apart, right?
And so I feel like people kind of do that with play-ins too, right? Like there's so much negativity about EU like getting knocked out in play-ins. People are like, oh, it means EU's trash. Well, no, I think that you should also celebrate the improvements from some of these regions, right? And I do think that a lot of these teams have actually gotten good, right? Like PSG just played a good series. I think that, you know, they clearly, to me, it felt like they shrunk a little bit under the bright lights, so to speak. Like in some of the later games, there was some more mistakes where maybe you could tell the pressure was getting to them and they were getting nervous. But I do think a lot of the regions have gotten better. I think Brazil has looked way better than they have in like a couple years ago. Maybe longer than that now, but like Brazil for a long time was kind of a bit
when
of a
it was
meme
like
and
the
was kind of excited for
INTZ
them,
meta and stuff like that, and like a lot of the teams that were just not, they felt like a play-in team. Loud is certainly
way
a
more
different
competitive,
breed.
right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of these teams I think have really stepped up and improved. So I think that's the fun thing about play-ins, right? And it should be, you know, like LCS4, LEC4, whatever, playing against, you know, the top teams from those regions, because that seems to be what is a competitive series, right? And where you can win. And I think that's exciting, and I think that's kind of like gives them something to chase and gives them kind of that thing to strive for, and also, you know, gives the LCS and LEC teams something to kind of like, it's that wolf nipping at your heels a little bit, right? Like you don't want to be the ones that are falling down to them. So
I just wanted to see
great for
R7
Vedius,
get out,
so.
just because I've been
Sorry?
following Audi for forever. Like I remember Vedius. That was when you first came to Sydney,
Yeah.
like a million years ago.
Yeah,
and we
2016.
casted the.
In the basement.
Yeah.
Of the studio.
No. This was before that, because this was actually. Oh no, it was in the basement of the.
International
Yeah, you're right.
wildcard,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was the international.
And we
wildcard.
cast so many games.
And that was where I think Audi was playing for Lion Gaming at the time.
yeah, it was
and he
like
was
what Rainbow
super
7 is
good.
now, and then it was
Yeah.
Lion Gaming back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's
then
been on that team for this whole
long
time,
time.
8 years.
I
or
always
something.
compare his name to Oddish.
Yeah. And I think he was playing Maokai a couple of times, so it just works out.
Honestly, a lot of us didn't think BDS would even make it out of play-ins.
Yeah, but
'Cause-
my point is that like it just, because these same names are coming in over and over again. What I don't like is the fact that it feels like the leagues aren't as competitive if you've got the same team over and over again at the top. And I guess I'm like speaking mainly towards the glass ceiling that I felt when I was back in OCE with the Chiefs that were just up on the top forever, and they were sort of like gatekeeping. So they got all of this international experience, brought it back and used it to win again, and then go back and then go win again and win again and win again and win again. And they're getting all the experience, but the other teams sort of miss out. And I'm just wondering whether there's a way to figure out getting some of these other
that's
teams
why I think
over.
Brazil is quite interesting. They always have a very competitive region. You always get new
Yeah.
talent as well, kind of making their way onto the stage and showing case what they're on. But
Loud sort of exploded into the Brazilian scene a little bit.
but that's
that
a lot of
organization
plans.
is
Let's get to the
insane.
meat. Let's get to what people
Let's
want.
do it. Yeah, let's the cheese,
The
as it turns
cheese.
out, because we're talking about Swiss. Not a dad yet, but I'm prepared. Let's do
I'm
a
so
little bit of a
angry right
rundown.
now. It's like Medic just spoke to me.
Just accept it. There's no fighting it.
The best thing about this is both of you are too jet lagged to do anything
Yeah.
about it, so it's fine.
honestly, when I haven't talked for a while, I just I'm like
You're achieving
I'm
just
barely
mental.
conscious.
There are going to be moments where I'm just going to speak, and halfway through a sentence, I'm going to be like, "What was I saying?"
I'm just completely losing.
I think it may have already happened multiple times. We just don't remember.
I think everyone is doing great, and we can go on to Swiss and be
Like
proud
your
of ourselves what we've done so far.
Oh, fantastic.
So what's next, boss?
Chronicler.
What's next?
Well, first we're just gonna have a
Who we
brief
talked
recap
about?
of what the Swiss is. I did the video, but I've kind of forgotten. Let's read it off this piece of paper that I've got here. Basically, what happens in Swiss is teams play against teams with the same scoreline as themselves. Everyone, as you saw in the draw, has already been placed into a best-of-1 bracket already. We're going to see all of those games, those best-of-1s happen, and then the teams that win play other teams that win, and the teams that lose play other teams that lose, and they will then be once again drawn into another bracket or two brackets.
You essentially
I guess.
just need 3 wins or 3 losses to
Exactly.
be advance or get eliminated.
The way I like to look at it is, once you have 2 wins, you will only play best of 3s from that forward, and
Yeah.
if you have 2 losses, you will only play best of 3s from that
Yep.
way forward. But as you said, you need 3 wins to advance, and then 3 losses will eliminate you.
Yep. And it'll just constantly be sorted into even matchups until
Yep.
we've got teams that are coming out into the knockouts and teams that are packing things up and going home.
And the crazy thing about this format, I was telling Azael this earlier, and it was like, I'm less interested in this matchup, and I'm more interested in the potential matchups that don't exist yet. And that's not to say that the current matchups aren't exciting. There's a lot of great games, but my head is like, what could happen? And I'm like,
the what does
really
it mean is actually really interesting. And there's already been like Reddit threads about like the setting up potential brackets and stuff like that. I've got it like here on my tablet.
Nice.
And, like we could do some like mock-ups of like where
want
teams
to,
could
yeah.
potentially go and stuff like that if we want to. But there are a lot of different permutations. The other thing that Reddit said was that the likelihood of a Western team making it out is like exponentially larger than it ever used to be in the group stage, because the potential chance of being able to never face an Eastern team is much higher. But since the group draw happened, it's now down to like 60%, 16% or something.
Western team has made it to quarters
Almost every
year.
time.
every year. I think
it would be every year.
every
Has
single
it been
year.
every year?
2014 did an NA team make it? It was
Didn't
Cloud9,
Cloud9,
wasn't
yeah.
it?
Because
But I was doing. I
So
know for a
it's-
fact that
Cloud9 was really good in 2014. I remember I was rooting for High when he was hiding in that brush
Yeah,
on
that was
Talon.
the-
that was the
God,
OG
that was such a
lineup.
fun
Yeah,
game.
that
Red
OG
Sneaky,
lineup.
Lamination, High Balls, and
Yep.
Vedius. Yeah.
Yep.
Love that
So
lineup.
it's like there is a chance that someone will get out. I think it's we're at least the number that we remembered was 60%, right?
yes,
I guess
Yeah.
60% without
and
having
they
to be.
assumed that I wish we could credit them. Unfortunately, I don't remember their name.
Oh, I got it.
I don't even remember my
Oh,
name.
hang on. No, I think I've got a different
But,
credit, but I can find it.
The 60% one, they assumed that the Korean or the LPL teams would always win against an EU or an NA team,
It's a
and
bold
even
assumption.
with all of that,
Very bold.
that there was still a 60% chance.
Yeah. So
Which I thought was pretty interesting.
there's definitely a shot. I mean, I think that overall there is some randomness in this in just how the matchups are seeded, right? There's good luck, there's bad luck. That is true, but I do think on average this is going to give you the best 8 teams more often than the previous system. It's also, I think the biggest thing that I am excited about with this is that it's going to give you more even matchups more quickly, right?
Yeah.
I want to watch Gen G play JDG. I want to watch C9 play Mad. We're going to get that in the first round. But I also want to see, Energy play against BDS or whatever, right? Like, I want to see these matchups that I'm like, oh, this would be pretty exciting. I want to see, LNG go up against KT. I want to see these kind of matchups much more quickly. And the cream is going to rise to the top, very likely. It's not going to be a shocker. A couple rounds in, a lot of the teams are going to be 2-0, very likely going to be a bunch of Eastern teams playing off against each other. We're going to have these banger BO3s really quickly. And we're also going to get way more, EU versus NA, very likely. Of course, people could kind of upset the apple cart, and then maybe things get weird, right, if there's upsets. But
There always is.
either way,
Well, so that's the
it's
beautiful
going
thing.
to be way more competitive, I
So
think.
Yeah.
I was talking to Azael about this on the way over, right? We think back to last year, Fnatic's week 1, 3-0,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Rogue went 2-1 in their first week.
Beat
You
DRX,
think
yeah.
about it. You think about a format like this. If they have a strong week 1, the implications for the rest of the tournament against a good team can be dramatic, right? Like, and that's what I think is super exciting. Like, a Fnatic comes in week 1, they just have a really good draft read, super prepared. They take a game off of LNG. That's all they need. They're now 1-0, and obviously the
You
competition
notice how
doesn't
he
get
sounds
easier.
awake now?
Yeah, yeah. I'm
Listen,
envisioning,
if you
I'm
will,
cooking. I'm
Fnatic.
cooking. You're seeing the future. I'm just like I'm seeing like I can see Fnatic getting a single win, and then they move up here, and then G2 can join them, and then we can have G2 versus Fnatic again, and then all of EU is happy because we love that matchup.
We'll just have that over and over again and then end world.
Yeah.
And it's fine. This is actually your Swiss draw. And it's just this, like crayon that just goes off with the strings.
And I'm like, and somehow we'll meet in the semifinals again. G2 versus Fnatic.
Let him keep going too long. He's going to start chanting Kings.
What I really love as well, in addition to the points that are already made, I love that there are more bracket draw moments, because I actually think that like talking about the bracket draw is so fun, right? And like I think group draw, you have the one moment, and then the groups are drawn, and then week 1 of groups is awesome, and then week 2 of groups you're like,
Really sad.
I mean, and regardless of
You
like
could be sad week 1 as
Yeah.
well.
and I'm not even talking about performance, but there are obviously some permutations. Like if matches are close,
Yeah.
the second match is fun. But very often after week 1, you have a very good idea of what will happen in week 2, and then you have like success stories. I forgot what the year was where Fnatic went 0-3 and then still made it out.
That was 2017.
Oh,
That's
a long time ago.
I thought that was a more recent one as well.
Because that was the
but-
Misfits year. That was against the NA team that
Yeah.
was
Oh,
2-1,
yeah.
and then they lost 3 games, and then they played a tiebreaker versus Fnatic, and then they lost.
So
I don't recall.
Yeah. That was
pleading the fifth.
It was the Cassia.
But
Let me give you more details. There was a Cassiopeia and a Tristana in a bot lane. And
It's not ringing
so
a bell, sorry.
not to bring up any old trauma, but for every of those stories, which apparently was in 2017, you have like 90% of groups in week 2 is just it's not great, right? You have like the day where you just have matches play with teams that are already. You eliminate all of that, and we just get to not only have the matches be played, but also look forward to them the day in advance. So I think that it really means that every time, like after day 1, you're already going to be like, okay, what's going to happen tomorrow?
it's gonna cook.
Yeah,
some
it's hype.
and then
Yeah.
you have like, I don't know, what is it, like 12 hours of like
Prep matters
prep
a lot.
and discussion, and like I think it is a really good way to keep people a lot more invested than with groups, where after week 1 you'll generally, the battle lines are kind of drawn and you have a great idea of what is going to happen.
I mean, even so it was MSI last year where EG went and G2 kept beating EG, right? MSI last year, I think it was.
8-0 one?
Yeah. But it was so that event though, like really stood out to me as just there were so many one-sided matchups, right? So it was major region versus minor region was 30-3 overall record. The only team that lost at all was G2. But it was like so one-sided, right? And it just started feeling like you're seeing these matchups over and over again that you already know what's going to happen.
And then I think T1 3-1 or 3-0 G2, and then RNG 3-0 or 3-1
Yeah.
BG.
Yeah,
And then
EG got like 1 win,
it was something like that.
And we
that was-
always
Yeah.
lost to you guys. We
Yeah.
always beat the team below us, and it does start to feel like that with some of the other formats. So both play-in format and this, I think, should be way more competitive.
Obviously the only downside, is that you run this risk of like not the greatest seeding tool, because you could end up like, let's say JDG win game 1, Gen G win game 1, and already in the next round they're now playing a best of 1, and one of them is going to get kicked down while the other one moves into the promotion match, right? And that could then cause some chaos in the bracket, which could then make things very, I mean, it's hard to necessarily visualize. If we do some simulations later, we can see some of the potential chaos that can happen.
Don't you think we just need to be more honest about the pools? To me, that's where the problem comes.
But I think it's
like,
so, like, I
shouldn't
get-
it just be that like LCK and LPL 1 through 3 are pool 1, and then literally like LCS and LEC don't have a pool 1, and then you know what I mean? Like maybe our number 1 team should be pool 3. I don't know, but like you would get better seeding.
I guess it's initial
Maybe.
seeding though, right? Because like in
Yeah.
a Swiss format, it's a little bit different, because like I personally think that for some teams going 0-2, that's actually the best outcome. Like
Really?
yeah, for T1 for example, put their backs against the wall.
Yeah.
Put their backs against the wall straight away.
Okay.
And just let them go through some BO3s, and then they'll be fine.
spoken with the man that has
Yeah.
confidence that they will then win the best
Yeah.
of 3.
Or they don't, and they rip the Band-Aid off. Like it's okay.
It's just like the pool to me is the only weak part of it, like how the teams are seeded, right? Because
Yeah.
NRG could have got BDS or Weibo, right? Or even Damwon, I think, was in the same
Yes.
pool,
They
are.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like
They could have got
it's-
Gam
Or
as
D
well.
plus, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? Okay, so it's like you could have drawn Gam or Damwon, who has all these world champions on it, right? It's just not equivalent at all. Like they shouldn't be in the same pool, and that's my kind of criticism of it. But I still think that like very quickly, it will kind of even out.
It will normalize,
It will
yeah.
normalize, and I still think the best teams are going to get out. You can get a bit unlucky, and your road can be harder or easier, but. I think it's going to be a great format. That would be my only kind of criticism for next year is I just think we kind of need to like rip the Band-Aid off and just admit some regions are clearly better than others, and it should be a different pooling around that.
Yeah, when EU is better than LPL, we probably should. More pools, I agree.
Got a
We'll just
time
have to
machine there,
see.
Vedius?
It's one of those things that's really hard to quantify though necessarily, is like the entirety
Historical
of
results.
leagues, and you just
You
you,
just
can,
do it.
you can do that, and we have an
Yeah.
idea of which leagues are better, but it's hard to like just 100%
It's
say.
just-
and I
it's
think
just-
that's
it's just
always
a math
been the
equation.
issue
That's
that
the
people
thing.
have
You
said.
literally just attribute points
This
for
is
each
the
result
thing
internationally and add it
I
up.
want to get into.
Uh-huh.
Specifically because all the tier lists, right?
Uh-huh.
Everyone puts LPL. Right now, I'm pretty sure every tier list is JDG 1, Gen G 2, LNG 3, and then it's either BLG or T1. And then usually, from what I've seen from tier lists, people are more skeptical of T1, and it's normally 3 LPL teams in the top, and then
because their regular
Gen G.
season was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? So, like, there's a lot more skepticism. And also, the finals was very one-sided affair,
Yeah.
right?
I was.
But historically, there's only been 1 year where Korea's been bad at Worlds. And I'm pretty confident.
I
Like,
remember that year.
I haven't done all the math. Like, I didn't check it, unfortunately, coming into this podcast. But when they had 4 seeds, like, I can't think of a time where they didn't get all 4 seeds out.
Even in the
Since they've
Hanwha
had-
year, which that was.
That's what I'm saying. Like, since they've had 4 seeds, and almost every time, then what happens in the quarterfinals is it's Korea v Korea, right? It's always Korea versus Korea.
There's at least one, yeah.
Because normally, like, the Hanwha is like 2nd seed in the group, right, rather than 1st seed.
Yeah.
And then I remember like the dumb 1 year, even back in 2019. You didn't even have 4 seeds back then, but
No,
like
that's
they
true.
were 2nd seed, I think, behind
They
IG.
came through play-ins.
So that just further
yeah.
reinforces clearly the pooling should just be different, right? It's like
Yeah, but it's one of those things where like, because I've seen it from a lot of fans where they're saying like, why do analysts underestimate the LCK teams? And I just think it's important to add the context of when we look at MSI, LPL was incredibly dominant, and especially just like when you watch the LPL teams play, their top 4 is just very competitive with each other, which I don't think is the same everywhere else. Like, maybe just based on the most recent games because of how one-sided your finals was. In EU, our finals was pretty one-sided as well.
Well, it was just the final out of our
also-
playoffs.
But that's what I'm saying. It was
Yeah.
just the final because you had so
Yeah.
many T1, KT, very close series,
Yeah.
right?
There's
I
also
mean,
a bit
yeah.
of a triangle going on where you could argue that based on, well, you never know, right? But based
Yeah.
on results, that KT has had a better matchup into Gen.G, but Gen.G better into T1, and then T1 obviously was able to clinch it out twice. I also think that was really interesting, and this has been, even in the 2021 when, and obviously we didn't have the losers bracket back then, and we didn't have 2 seeds for each region, right? But the historical dominance of LPL in MSI never actually holds over to
It's
Worlds.
true, yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I also think that given that how dominant LPL was at MSI, it is normal to rate the LCK on average a bit lower. But I think practically, when we actually get into the tournament, like T1 probably makes finals again somehow, even though they were absolutely not.
But it's
good
interesting,
at
right?
all.
Because I know that Azael has mentioned this a few times. Like, it was like, it's not updated, but I remember you giving me a stat once, which is 7 of the last 8 tournaments are won by
that's what I was
LPL,
gonna say.
right?
It was that's why people were saying LPL was better because it was a stretch. I can't remember if it was 7 of 8. I think it was 7 of 8 because I think there was
it's only Damwon.
yeah, it was
Yeah, it's the
Damwon
Damwon.
and G2 won MSI during that stretch. Those
Yeah.
are the only 2 that weren't won. So that's or so what it would have been 6 of 8 then, right? It would've
Well,
been-
yeah, because there was G2, and then there was that year FPX. They were Worlds, and then I
Yeah.
think it was RNG next year, 2020. 'Cause-
I'd have to go back and look at it all.
but I'm pretty sure RNG was 2020 and 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, because they were
Um,
basically the
and
kings of MSI. at that
EDG was
point.
2021 Worlds.
Yeah, and
right?
then Dalmon was 2020 Worlds,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's one of those things where LPL.
That's why people were saying that.
Yeah. But I think it's a lot of the. You look at last year, and they had 3 Korean teams in the top 4, right?
Yeah.
And
so
in 2021 as well.
That's the other side
Yeah.
of the coin, right? That's always been, I think, the argument is that because I know that from the LCK perspective, people also argued that there was like more teams, going further,
Right.
And then, but it was like LPL was winning. But it's also interesting, right? Because there's always that debate, and
it's
then
really fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you judge it based on the amount that are good or who has the best?
Yeah.
I
Well,
guess.
and then there's also the arguments. Like a lot of LPL fans will argue that below the top 4, there's still really, really good teams.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
hundreds
right.
of teams.
So it's like the
crazy.
LPL has so many teams, so people that also I think feeds into it. Is that, and I've felt this as well. I don't know. It's hard to quantify because you never actually get to see these teams really doing battle.
Yeah.
I've even felt of that sometimes with LEC, and maybe it's just like copium, but like at times I'm like, oh, I think that our like 3 through 8 are maybe more competitive, but like clearly G2 and Fnatic are just better, right? And we always lose to them. But you never really get to see that. So it is an interesting discussion. It is an interesting argument. But LPL has so many teams now.
But which side of the coin are you guys on?
Well, they're
that-
clearly on LCK's better. That's not even
Not
a question.
necessarily.
I-
Well,
no,
no,
I
that's
don't
not,
think better
I don't
at
think
all.
so at all.
So
These guys are often LCK doubters, actually.
I'm too emotionally
Really,
invested.
you wouldn't argue that LCK is the better league?
Because in my opinion,
I think LCK is the better league, but JDG is the best team.
Yeah, that'd be what I would be leaning
that's what I
towards.
would have thought you would say.
Yeah.
But I would have been shocked if you had either of you would have said that LPL is the better league.
No, I actually think the leagues are very. I don't think,
think
you
it's
can
hard to- it's hard
decisively
to-
say one of the
yeah.
two is
Yeah.
better.
Because
Like,
LPL
Well, you
is
can't
so
'cause we
different
we
because
never
it's
see
so
them actually
massive,
compete
right?
in a
But specifically because of like if you were talking like 2018 to 2019 obviously wasn't
2018,
close.
no one's gonna argue.
But if you look at like 2021, even though EDG won, it was also by a game, right? And I think that in the last few years, outside of 2022 MSI actually, which was kind of an outlier, it has been extremely close.
Yep.
And if it ended up being JDG winning last year, for example, but it would still be 3 LCK teams that made it to the semis/finals, or semis rather. I think that it still makes the discussion very hard. And I hope that with Swiss, we will have a better idea as to how some of these teams, like LNG versus KT, for example.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I love the idea of that matchup.
Because
Everything about that makes me so happy.
Yeah, well, because it's KT.
And it's formerly Snake. Like it's like my team that was pretty much KT outside of IG, I guess, who was like the OG, like because Rookie was there, I guess. But like Snake really held up that mantle in the LPL.
Don't you have KT versus BLG?
We do.
Yeah,
Which is
I also am looking at like.
Shouldn't that just be a lot of violence? I feel
it will be.
It depends on which KT shows up, but it also depends on because both these teams have a lot. I think KT's fall was a little bit steeper because they were the first Korean team ever to not win after getting the streak that they did in
So they
regular
had
split.
Everyone
basically
first team all
perfect-
pro.
They had like they had
Everyone
so
predicted
many,
them to
which
beat
obviously they're
T1.
KT. So then they
Or
They
everyone
chose
except one
T1.
person predicted them against T1,
which
right?
actually that I will
Jonas Strong,
I will
think.
forever defend that decision. People saying that like they shouldn't have chosen T1 are hindsight Andes.
yeah,
if
but
you-
like,
but
bro,
it-
you're just gonna have to accept. I have to live with
what you don't understand is that
1647.
they lost the series.
Yes, I have to live with 1647 when it was T1 that actually has the shortest international game.
with the Sonateric against
But yeah, you know, but it doesn't matter.
I'm
People
pretty
sit there and go,
happy.
"Don't care." 1647. You know
Thanks,
what I mean?
I'm very happy that
Has a nice
that
ring
is
to
a
it.
thing.
Yeah.
but I
No one remembers the exact
After
time
Golden
of the
Guardians
RGT
got
one.
pounded,
Yeah.
I tweeted out, "Wow, that was so one-sided." But the important takeaway is
but
it still
It's
wasn't
the
less
meme
than
that keeps on giving.
1647,
People-
and I got a couple thousand likes. I felt a little bit better about myself, you know. And I needed that day, Vedius. Okay, so don't
Still
take
not
this
enough.
from me.
Still
I
doesn't
feel
get
so
a lot
bad.
of
Don't take
for
this
that.
from me.
People
You
love
can't,
punching
don't
down to them.
we're actually that's actually the match I'm looking most forward to because Atlus and I are casting C9 versus Mad. We have no emotional stake whatsoever.
All right, what do we want
I
to
mean,
do
I
now?
have a bit
Let's
of emotional stake. So the guy who cut my hair actually yesterday is Berserker's cousin. And they spent
What?
Chuseok together.
He's bought and paid.
They were like
He's a C9 man.
Yeah, he's a C9
They were-
man.
they were but like I mean it's my barber.
It's a
so
good haircut.
It's a bit removed. You know, it's
no,
a bit removed.
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
think it is.
It's a good haircut,
There's
Max.
bias in that. I'm getting
Let's be
twitched.
honest.
He did tell me a lot of like
If you
scrim information.
flip it
was
forward,
really-
there's probably like a C9 logo shaved in on the top.
Oh,
like
wow.
Berserker's
I wouldn't even know. Like, guys, can you see it? Is it there? Like, I haven't checked the back of my head.
It's hidden. It's under the
yet.
swoop.
Oh God. Yeah, I just need to open the trap door at the back.
Freddy, you were saying.
Oh, what time are we at in this podcast?
Oh, I don't know.
Who
Wait,
knows?
so-
No one's gonna know.
Okay.
What
Do we
is
want to move
time,
on to talking
really?
about some of the teams?
We can
I
do
think
matchups.
I think we should definitely do some of the matchups
'Cause
that we're going to get.
I can speed
completely
them.
derail us once more. And
Yeah,
ask
go
a
ahead.
quick
Go on.
one.
Yeah, go, you
because
can.
it's just popped in my head. Because we talked about this in the cab.
Yeah.
So, okay, whatever. I don't know if it's a hot take. It's not really a hot take. I think most people agree that a lot of the Eastern teams in groups would under-prepare for the Western teams. They wouldn't really be thinking that much
At least
about
in week
them.
one, I would argue.
At least in
For
week,
sure,
at least
yeah.
in week one, right? Oftentimes they came out. They wouldn't even be banning the clear things that they're going to be picking and things like that. But when it came to best of 5, they'd be really prepared for them, right? But they'd be focused on the other top Eastern teams in their groups. In the Swiss format, you are singularly focused on one team. So I was curious what your guys' perspective was. Do you think the LCK and LPL teams will still look past their Western opponent if they have one? Or do you think they'll actually prep for those teams properly?
I think it's a bit of both. I actually think that like an Eastern team, if they're up against an opponent that they think lesser than them, then they will focus on perfecting their play style going into that matchup, and they won't care as much.
But
it's a best of one. Like it's really
I'll let
hard.
you comment and then
I
I want to
imagine
comment
it's
on that.
like
Every
both.
game
It's
really
both.
matters, right?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
So I think that the philosophy from the ground up for any Eastern team is always going to, which is why their drafts are generally structured the way that they are, is always going to be, we're just going to do what we
Yes.
believe is the strongest, and it shouldn't really matter which team you face. Practically, I think that for Genji and T1 and for
Enter Adam.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
For example,
Yeah.
but that's my point. Against Genji, even if Doran goes like 0-4, I don't actually think it would matter at all. And I think JDG is the same. But I think that luxury is only there for the top, like the top 4 LPL, LCK combined, right? I think if you're a team like D Plus who have at times gotten 10k gold leads and then punted them, right? Like they can't afford to, if they're, depending on how they're playing, but if they're playing like they did domestically, then you would have to take a more tailored approach.
They can be quite stubborn.
They
that doesn't make them.
absolutely
That doesn't make them bad.
We were talking about this, yeah.
But they can be stubborn, and that's specifically in week 1. And I don't have all the stats for this again because I wish I was Jap, but I'm not. You'll find that they often go 2-1 in week 1, whereas in week 2 they'll do the 3-0s.
Yeah, no, you're right.
There's
and
enough
like-
tape. Yeah.
But the downside for you guys is that specifically for G2, they're playing D+. Like, I actually think that in this case, the matchup really matters.
So we get into matchups because I'm down.
yeah,
I think it's a good
I think we
segue.
just, do we want to start from the top of what the little list that I've got
let's
here
just do the
is?
interesting ones because
Okay,
Gen G
let's
Gam is one-sided. We don't need to talk about Gen G.
G2 and then end the podcast. Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds
Oh,
fun.
C9 Matt's good. BLGKT is good.
Where do you guys want to start?
I think TLT1 is also good.
Is it
In which
Azael?
way, Atlus?
Is it good?
Purely because
Pioshik versus
their
T1?
The T1 expert says it's good, so
their acronyms are very similar, and Pioshik
defer to
beat
the
Faker
LCK
last
expert
time.
on this one.
Do not engage him on this. Do not let Atlus.
No, I mean I'm quite compelled.
Azael, update us on the
do
status
continue.
of Team because the last time TL was at Worlds. When was that? When was the last time TL was at Worlds? Do you remember?
Oh God, off the top of my head, I'm not.
It was a
even
Jensen
sure.
roster, surely.
Yeah, I think it was
2021, right?
It was the Jensen roster.
Oh,
where
it was the Alfari roster. Was that the one with Mad, LNG?
Yeah.
TL?
Jensen was like the best player on their team, and then got replaced.
Yeah, and then TL's very different now, right?
Yeah, they're very different. Yeah, that's true. I guess if you haven't watched any LCS, I mean, this is everyone calls them TLCK, right? Like it's the LCK versus LCK matchup. But I mean, this was a team that came in, and I think expectations were actually pretty high for them in spring. Everyone was kind of like, the rumors were that this team was actually just stomping everyone in scrims. They were bringing in some young NA players, right? Like bringing up Jan, Harry, obviously OS, but counts as NA resident now with those rules. They have Summit, they have Core, they have Pioshik, and the rumors were that they were really, really kind of pounding everyone in scrims. So there was quite a bit of hype around them in spring. And there was also this whole thing that TL was talking about, and they kind of pulled back on this now, but where they were just going to like basically work harder than everyone, and they were pushing to have additional scrim blocks, and they were going to do 3-4 scrim blocks, and just like turbo grind, and all of them were super dedicated to also, after doing more scrims, then play 1,000,000 hours of solo queue, right? And they wanted to play it like the LCK kind of like grind, to grind the glory, whatever. And they have LCK coaches and so on and so forth, right? So it was going to be a full kind of like Korean style. It didn't really work in spring at all. They didn't look very good, to be honest. They really
Did they
struggled.
finish in spring? Did they make playoffs?
They finished 8th, or maybe even 9th. I want to say it was 8th though, but I'd have to double check. So they were not good in spring at all, and they really struggled. Core individually looked really bad. Pioshik had some moments, but wasn't really working. Harry was really struggling.
That actually sounds like a pretty good regular season for Pioshik. Not gonna lie,
Well,
pretty good.
Harry was really struggling.
Summit was Summit.
Summit was Summit.
Yeah.
There was like a brief moment where people were like, "Oh my God, did he improve and not dying?" And it was like, "No, it was just the matchup. He's still dying in
As
silence."
someone who's had a lot of emotional stake running on Summit changing,
Yeah, it's not gonna happen.
it's
Yeah,
not.
no.
It's
But
it's never happening.
either way, in summer they've definitely improved a lot. They also brought in APA, which was kind of cool. There's a lot of excitement around him just because he is like he's someone who is an NA player who has basically done everything right. He absolutely grinds solo queue. He's been in Korea for, I think it's something like 50 days ish, around there, and he played 500 and something solo queue games in that time.
Yeah.
He's like over 1k LP in Challenger. For Champions Queue, he won Champions Queue. Like, he was first in
Holy
Champions
crap.
Queue. He is always at the top of the ladder with multiple accounts and so on.
And
Like
he's
this
the Ziggs guy.
this guy is a turbo grinder, and he plays weird stuff. So he plays, he's known for Ziggs, but if you look at his champion pool in solo queue, it's like Cassio, Kled, Ziggs. It's all kinds of stuff that like isn't really common. But he really grinded and had a really great debut, so people were really excited about him. I think realistically he's probably a middle of the pack LCS mid laner right now, but with like potentially big upside. But he came in, things started working a lot better with him than they did with Harry. Core started playing way better. I think Core had his best split in probably 3 years in LCS.
Holy crap.
He picked up some All-Pros a couple years ago that I think were super fraudulent and were kind of just name recognition, to be honest. But he played really, really well in summer. Yon has improved massively. At least by like LCS standards, they're a really, really strong bot lane. And I think Yon is another guy who's really good in solo queue, really good kind of grinding away. And Pyosik is working way better with the team. So I think that's all been kind of good. And Summit's kind of just Summit still. He's kind of doing his thing. Yeah. He's an incredibly good laner, but
he's Summit. Yeah,
I feel like Summit, you'll always get Summit, and that's there's something to
He's
that,
been the same
know?
since 2018.
Summit
since
about
he promoted,
that.
Yeah.
But they improved a massive amount, and they have changed a lot since you've seen them last. So it will be interesting. But I mean, T1 is. I mean, I don't know if you were being serious with thinking it's competitive,
Well, like,
but I think that's really, really hard.
I don't
matchup.
know what T1's going to look like.
Yeah.
Vedi, I was wondering if you wanted to have a chat about, like, just explain to us your dark horse EU team that isn't G2.
Oh, no.
Who is it going to be? And
There
is
isn't
it
one.
BDS? Is
No.
BDS doing it?
It's
Is
just
Fnatic
G2.
doing it?
No, it's just G2.
We like Noah a lot.
He already took the
Tell me
other
why he's
horses
gonna
out
win.
back and he shot them. The other horses are dead Atlus. There's only one.
All right,
And it's a
good one.
shining white horse.
Yeah, it's
With caps
G2
riding
white. Yeah, I will look to the east.
The caps coming over
and
the
on the,
mountain.
fifth, and on the fifth day, they will come to our aid.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. No, I just
All right.
Fnatic, very inconsistent to a degree. I mean, like, they got better towards the end, but like they went through 7 million roster changes throughout the year. They won the. They
quite a
got
few.
second with Wonder. They're not going to play with Wonder at Worlds. They're going to play with Oscar. And Oscar is, in theory, a better top laner than Wonder right now because Wonder can only play like one champion.
He could probably play Garen, though.
Don't think he can.
I think but, I mean, I have the mechanics to play Garen. Like, guys, it's not rocket science.
I don't know
to
what
just
tell
do
you,
some
man.
Garen.
I just don't have faith in Europe. It's gone. I have
Are
faith
you
in
okay?
G2.
Well, I mean, G2 looked like a really good team.
You
so that
only
makes
need
sense.
one.
G2 is Europe.
That's the thing. You only need one in order to win Worlds, right?
Yep.
You
That's
only
that's
need
how it
one,
goes.
true.
That's what we know after last year.
One
I
team
mean, you're not the
region,
LCK.
baby.
We need 2 LCK teams in the finals to actually win.
Oh God.
You know, because
Okay,
like,
well, no, if one of the
Well,
teams,
based on the G2 history in World Finals, though, they're going to need more than one.
I mean, just pretend it's an MSI final. You know, come on, that one worked out.
Well,
all right.
they need us to be doing well, and that's a big
Oh
ask.
God, no, that's true. But you did just tell me how promising Team Liquid are looking. So
Yeah.
we'll be okay, right? We'll get there.
I mean, you were the one that was saying that was the matchup to
So-
watch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was somewhat facetious, but
Yeah.
we'll see. So Fnatic's not going to do it. BDS. I mean,
I mean, like, I believe that they can win best of 1 games, sure.
Mm.
But no, I don't believe they can go very far in the tournament. G2's pretty much it.
all right.
So what's your definition though? Because I'm curious. Would you be happy if G2 made quarters and then got that's it?
No, I would like them to get semis. I think they can get semis.
So
I
semis
think
is
that
where you
have
think
the
they have to get.
potential to get semis.
So you think anything less than semis is disappointment?
I mean, I don't know if I would say disappointment because Europe's just been a bit of a disappointment over the last few years. So our bar's kind of low.
Welcome, my
friend. So far, it's one of those things
this
that
is
I-
good
Good
layup,
layup, Azael.
Yeah, this is my kind of talk right
Earlier,
here.
I said
I
that,
was
like,
gonna say, I feel like he's playing handball, and there's a wall there. you know?
Or earlier, I said that Europe has only ever failed to make it out of group stages once in 2014, but it's always just been like in recent years, it's just been barely. And then we got 0-3'd every time we did get out.
Yep.
So it's like, I'm looking for us to get a game. I'd like 2, preferably 3.
That's normally the good one.
Yeah,
You get 3, then you stay around.
But I
another
genuinely
week.
think, like, I think people have a pretty, like, skeptical view of G2 just because they think, how good is the region? So are they just looking better because the region's bad? And so they're just, like, the best of a bad
They're the
bunch?
Harlem Globetrotters.
I don't get that reference.
No,
'cause I
Atlas,
don't-
Atlas
anyone-
makes that
does
one.
anyone
I make
get
that
this
one
reference?
all the time.
I
He
love
had to
Harlem he had to
Globetrotters
explain it to
references.
me. They're like a basketball team that stomps
It's-
people. That's
I
kind
know
of it.
they're basic. It's like basketball theater, pretty much. They just dunk on
They just do
Other
wild
teams and do wild stuff.
right? Like they just do cool things. They're
like
like really
spinny arm
skilled
dunks and stuff.
But it's like, but would it work against the best players? You know, that's kind of the thing, and that's my hesitation with G2. So like we talked about this. I think that G2 is in a separate tier from all the other Western teams, right? I think they're better than all the other Western teams. I'm just not sure if that then means they're with Damwon and Weibo or whatever, right? Like, are they with, does that put them in a tier with the 4th place of those kind of regions that maybe they can be competitive there? Or does it actually, kind of catapult them up into an echelon where they can compete with the best teams? Because if you're talking about being able to make semifinals, the reality is you have to actually beat those best teams, because if you don't finish top 4, you're going to be playing one of those teams, right? Like, you have to be topping out really early. Like, you have to get out of Swiss early, or you're going to be playing one of those teams in a best of 5, and you're probably not going to win if you don't think that they're on that level, right? Because, like, the top 4 is going to be really, really strong. Everyone is looking at top 3 already, kind of like LNG, Gen.G, and JDG. But 4th is maybe more arguable, T1, KT, whatever. If Damwon maybe believe it's good for them or whatever. But
I like that we're just saying Damwon from now on. Am I allowed to just do it again? Because I'm done with D+.
But
Man.
Azael has slept 2 hours. You have slept more.
And I've been saying D+ for a year, so that's true.
I should probably actually just start saying D+.
It's a good idea
but
to get into the habit
right
of
now,
it.
you don't have to. Use the excuse given to you, man.
But you could use this time to practice.
True.
As well. There are 2 different ways to think about it.
So my heart wants to believe that D+, this is, because I don't know, that team is so weird. They look so good, and then they don't look good at all.
On
and then
paper, they're an
dunking on
incredible
scrims,
team. Yeah.
And on paper, they look amazing. And then the meta right now, you can Talia. And
Showmaker was just not that good this year.
He wasn't. No.
Showmaker was in a lot of pain this year.
So
his interviews actually made me sad.
They were really sad. But he's been talking about how recently it's been better, and Deft has been talking to him, and Deft is also...
Deft is the greatest human ever.
Deft is the greatest human ever.
And
then also...
Deft has a reputation of making the players around him way
Put
better.
him in a music video?
Oh, did you know that
Exactly.
they won Worlds last year?
Yeah. Wow. You didn't know?
No,
Crazy.
I knew.
Yeah.
Do you know he was the first 80 carry to win MSI?
Wait, what?
Okay.
Did you
Oh,
know
It
that?
was,
yeah.
20. Yeah. It's
That's what
fine,
you meant.
okay.
I was really
Anyway,
confused.
Let's
the way
not.
you
I
worded
thought
that.
you
let's
were
not.
saying he was like the only 80 carry to ever win MSI.
My brain was
It sounded
really...
good, didn't it? It sounded really, really good.
I need to
Let's not
nah.
engage Max on Deft. That's a terrible. That's like normally I'm here with Feldus and Wolf, and they're
I
right
know,
there
and
ready
they're
to
just
shut
groaning.
it down.
Yeah. And I've got just 2 really
I'm
jet-lagged
sorry. This
people
is
that are barely
on
listening
me.
to what I'm saying.
I'll try to do better. But
We're trying to talk about D+.
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh,
My
nailed
man.
it. We are actually just going to take
yes.
that. That's going to be a
But-
soundbite, and every time you said dumb on this episode, it's just going to be that D+.
D+. So the real
Ian,
thing
you can
is
use that.
D+.
But there was also Canyon, and as good as he is in the games that he looked good, the other games he would straight
Why are you
up
guys such doubters?
run it.
Why aren't you selling
So
Korean
here's-
Do you want to
teams?
see
So
my
here's-
pick'ems?
Yeah, what are they?
Don't reveal it.
Don't
do it.
I won't say it now. We'll keep everyone in suspense because I'm pretty sure I'm going to be back on this podcast again in the future, and I'll reveal it then. Maybe we'll just keep it as a grand reveal.
So basically, I think so this is just a personal flaw for me. I'm extremely overinvested in the success of every single LCK team. If I get my hopes up, then it's really hard for me to deal with. Realistically, though, I think that D+, who knows? Especially, I think that DRX kind of ruined talking about teams because now every 4th seed we have to be like, but what if? No, not what if. Gen.G and T1, if they make anything less than semis, right? Like, that's just not good at all. KT can argue is on the same strength, but I think the team has a history of underperforming in high pressure situations.
And there's a lot of good teams. If you're putting them on that level, there's 3 LPL teams. Guess what? 2 of those teams can't make it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I do expect there will be an LPL team that just bombs because that has also happened for like the last
But you
4
would need
years?
if you think
3
those
years?
3 LCK teams should
course.
make it, then 2 of them
Yeah.
have to bomb, right? You need like BLG and LNG or JDG and LNG to both.
Well, they just
bomb
need to
out.
beat them.
No, you just
Yeah.
yeah, we'll just beat them.
You
yeah.
just need which I think KT are good enough.
Yeah.
Right, but with KT it's very much which
Don't
KT
we
do you
do,
get.
can we not? I just don't want to talk about KT.
No, this is also a problem because we've talked a lot about KT and then KT happened.
We've been
and
talking about how
also-
KT is supposed to be good
How
all year.
First
How-
team All Pro.
Yes. How many years
The
of
5 best players in the LCK.
They weren't my
KT?
first-
So KT specifically was able to leverage the individual performances of Keen and BDD, who had really good regular seasons.
They
Like
were
Keen,
definitely part of
Keen
my
was
favorite,
by
yeah.
Keen in playoffs wasn't that great. Zeus was definitely, I think, the best top laner in playoffs. But Keen in regular season was like miles ahead of everyone.
I would
Solo
argue
carrying
that Doran
games.
was the best in playoffs.
Sure, but yeah, Doran actually had a good play.
I think Doran deserves a bit of
A
extra
bit.
recognition.
Yeah,
What
I don't
about
know.
your boy
Doran's-
Doran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Sorry, he is underappreciated, but also
I like
he's-
this. We've just
he's-
got cheerleader Azael
Yeah.
half listening to what we're saying and then picking up the last bit and saying, "You go, man! Hell yeah!"
but so
I think
KT's
it's
top side
impressive that I'm picking up anything.
was really
I know,
strong.
I'm very impressed.
And then you had Aiming, who was playing anything from like generally things like Kaisa or especially
Kaisa.
Shift.
These
or
all sound
Kaisa,
like great
or
things.
Shift,
Kaisa.
So
yeah,
why
yeah,
are you
Shift
so
Kaisa.
skeptical? Why
well,
are you so?
because they don't win. That's why.
They
don't win, man.
They went full 5
There's
games against
also-
T1 twice. That's got to count for something.
There's
right?
all yeah,
That
but there's
counts
also
for losing to T1.
Yeah.
Yeah, for,
That's what counts
for
for.
specifically KT, and I can't really speak to this because I was never as emotionally invested in KT as some of our other talent members because I was always a doubter because it's KT, right? And like, but there's also like what 8 years of trauma for this team.
Yeah.
But then it can happen, right?
It
I
can.
doubted energy.
I mean, that-
all the way through playoffs. This team went 9-9. They went 0-2 against Immortals, and Immortals won like 3 times in the whole year, and then they won.
So
And then they won the whole thing. It can happen.
It can happen. And KT is good enough. Like the individual players, like Keen, BDD, are world class players. BDD was a game away from like dragging
BDD
his
was
team.
really good this year, I thought.
Yeah,
BDD was incredible.
but then in playoffs, BDD was a bit rougher. Keen just didn't look like regular season Keen, and Lahens was. I'd prefer not to speak, but Lahens had.
he means actively bad.
Yeah, he was actively like losing
If I
multiple
speak,
level
I'll
ones by
be
himself.
fined.
So in light of that, it's hard to really rate the team, and I could see them beat BLG decisively because I think that at the peak that team is really good, but I could also just see them get completely clapped.
It's the same crux of the issue that I had with Golden Guardians, and I think a lot of people have with teams that have very disparate performances in regular season versus playoffs, right?
Yeah.
When I was trying to predict GG versus BDS, it was like, well, I think if it's regular season GG, they're actually going to stomp BDS, and if it's postseason, they're going to get stomped, right? And I think that's always the hard thing is that when you have teams that look so good for a stretch and then really bad out of nowhere. Is the bad team the real team? Is the good team the real team? Is it somewhere in the middle?
both, yeah.
Is it meta dependent? Is it nerves dependent? Like what's going on
Is it just the
here?
day dependent? It's like side
Yeah.
of the bed dependent, you know? Like these things like play a big part, and I think that it's really, really hard, and I think it must add like so much pressure to the players, right? Because they
Yeah.
come off the stage after having a day like that, and they're like, well, where the hell do I go from here, right? Like this is going to be like, I don't have the ability to now go back and do it again because like they're flying home, right? For in GG's sake. And we're talking about KT, like they don't get to find redemption for that semi-final or that lower bracket final against T1
Or the one before,
until
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Well, and like the one before was even more egregious because they decided that that's what they wanted to do, even after the spring season. But I mean, I think that's a bit of hindsight
Well,
as well, personally, because I kind of like.
I'm going to be more optimistic for the LCK because I just think
I think we will get a team into the final. I just don't think we'll win the
get,
final.
But it's just so fun. It's so funny because the way I hear you guys talk about them, it's always just like, no, they're good, but and there's always that but. There's always that caveat.
They're good.
Our but is that
winning
they
World
won't win
Finals.
Worlds. Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
sure, that's fair.
yeah.
I guess that's a fair context.
And you also like since I came to the LCK, I've had to watch us lose 3 finals by 1 game. And I know.
I just have no sympathy.
So this is the problem, and I understand, and I knew when I said that was going to be like, okay. So, but that's I think the
Perspective
reason.
matters. I
But
get it.
No,
Yeah.
but yeah, it doesn't mean that I don't expect the LCK teams to do well, but it does mean that goes into a lot of how we talk about our teams, and I
And the
think that
expectation has to
particularly-
be higher, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And coming off of MSI specifically as well, I wouldn't be surprised if this is because I think ever since we got 4 seats, it's always been 4 seats out. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the first time that it's 3 instead of 4.
And I don't know who's
No
going to be the
way.
one to drop. That's the thing. Like because
You-
I
you-
actually.
so you'd expect an LPL team to because obviously you'd expect G2 to make it, and then an LPL team like Weibo or
Yeah, I think an LPL team will drop out.
I mean
To me-
historically that is definitely the
to
argument
me-
to make.
To me, the thing about LCK is that they are the only region, because it comes back to a point you made earlier, that are able to translate what they do in playoffs into what they do in Worlds. I think that their performance is often fairly comparable. And if they underperform in playoffs, they almost always get better by Worlds. I feel like that it is because, exactly as you two have already both said, they focus so much on refining their own gameplay that they get to a base level that is exceptionally high. And the people that beat them are the ones that have more flexible drafts, have a better idea.
It's the G2s that win against them
but
because
also,
they
like,
have to mix it up.
Good
about
LPL
GOG
teams that have like good prep and are not afraid to try something different on a stage, you know, like, but it's just, I feel like that the foundation of LCK on average against many of the regions is always just higher because they do. I think it's very difficult for many regions to be able to focus on what makes them good and then keep that up. But ultimately, they just have very good League of Legends fundamentals that they refine, right?
Yeah.
Like their macro on average is just very high. Their individual players are just very skilled, and so they can come in at a high base level, and then they just need to attune to depending on what the World Championship looks like. And again, like LPL teams have been able to get the better of them a fair number of times throughout the recent history.
I think LPL teams are on a similar level to that, though. I think
the biggest
focus
contrast is that all LPL teams, I don't think they come in equal. Like, I think that you get a contrast from what you saw at the end of the regular season from LPL to what you will get at the World Championship. And I think that they are teams that are a lot more...
Even from JDG, though?
JDG.
I feel like
that's
everything
fair.
you're saying
JDG
applies to JDG. Like, they've just...
I don't think
they've
anything
just-
applies
They
to
just
JDG.
perfected team fighting, and they're going to do the same thing.
I think that we are all unanimous in that JDG are the heavy favorites coming into this tournament. Like, I think you are 100% correct.
You kind of have to.
Like,
Like
it's-
after the run that they've had and how they just...
They
LNG
just...
how they
was
look.
so close to beating them,
True.
They were.
but they always lose.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
it's the LNG way. It's the
I feel
LNG way.
I don't know. A part of me thought stylistically, like, they are quite similar teams, but I just felt like that JDG was a little bit better at that style.
I mean, I feel that way too, but those years were so close.
No, they were.
LNG actually should have won
You
in
think?
some of those games. Yeah.
I thought it was... I don't know. It's close.
I do love that matchup though, just for the Tarzan versus Kanavi, like Padawan versus Master. Like, oh god, I love it so
That's
much.
actually the only... Because I do agree with you, very, like, rating the teams. I think JDG are the team to beat, like, no matter what, because
100%,
they
yeah.
are... They have multiple players that are extremely... Actually, argue the only one that isn't versatile as much as the rest is Ruler, and it doesn't matter because of what the bot lane meta looks like.
That's because
right now.
Ruler only wins.
Well, I mean,
He
yeah,
doesn't
but
have.
also-
He's just so.
That's not what I'm
inflexible.
talking. You know what I'm talking about. You remember when there were
He
metas
dies
where he
at
had
mid
to
lane
play-
enemy turret and he wins. That's what he does. Okay, Chronicler, accept
like,
it.
Both Knight, Kanavi, 369 are, I think, can play anything from aggressive to facilitative to. So it's really hard, I think, to keep down this team because they will always be able to both flex and draft, and then be able to out team fight basically everyone, as we have seen. But I think if you look at the rest of the teams, I would agree that there is a lot more volatility involved with what you end up
Because
getting.
I think of
and-
BLG and Weibo, as like I was talking to Hysterics,
Yeah.
and he was kind of... My take on BLG was that, like, they're, of the teams being sent, they're like the best early game team. Like, they're really good at making stuff happen in the early game. They're really good at driving leads, finding great skirmishes. Like, I always get impressed with their tower dives. Like, they're a team that's very good at controlling the game from start to finish. Whereas I feel like LNG and JDG are a little bit slower. Not to say that they can't balloon games, right? But that was like the contrast difference between them. And then Weibo is a little bit more flippy in that, like, they're kind of very much
A
on, like,
lot of it more.
That's a nice.
Yeah.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that's a
As-
very nice way of describing.
yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sure if
accurate.
Hysterics was here, he'd be like, a little.
Yeah.
With his Australian, can you say it because you're Australian?
A little.
There you go, perfect. It's like Hysterics is speaking to me. Yeah, and so I feel like that this type of meta, which feels very team fight driven, is going to skew more towards the JDG and LNG,
Yeah.
more so than the
BLG were
BLG.
basically the KT of the LPL,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like
That
they
matchup's gonna be so
slammed
cool. Yeah.
the regular season. This team was so good in the regular season, right?
And
So
hot take, I think, you know, sometimes you hear this from analysts, and I'm going to say
Uh-huh.
it here. I think BLG lost their series versus LNG more than LNG won it. That's how I felt watching those games. I felt like the
That
BLG
is generally
ran it-
what happens when the other team.
No,
wins,
but
though,
like,
isn't it?
because like usually
he means like unforced errors, right?
I feel like
course
yeah,
he
okay.
did.
I know you're kidding, but like, but
Yeah, yeah, no, I know
Yeah,
what
it's
you
one of
mean,
those things because like I remember that
Games
Nidalee
to win
it was that
and games
Nidalee
to
draft,
lose,
and I was like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, you've made this really
I
impossible
would make
for you
the
to
same
win.
argument about PSG. to be honest.
Yeah,
At
that's
the
a
end of
fair.
Plains.
I think that's fair. I wouldn't
Yeah.
disagree with that.
You know the KT BLG matchup, like that's actually because there's so many. If you look at the way that Shun controls the early game,
And
versus
the way
Cuz
Cuz doesn't control
does-
anything or himself. Like,
no,
no, but he does. No,
Cuz was
it's
really good this year.
He was incredibly good, but it didn't look like it was calculated. It's Cuzculated.
Nah,
It was
man.
Cuzculated.
No,
you
man,
know?
Cuz
He just
was
Cuzes
legit.
around the
an
rift.
idiot savant. He's just like wandering around. He's like, whoa, there's someone there. I guess I'll kill him.
Cuz
I should do that, and he did, and then
Hey,
they
look,
won.
there's raptors. I'm gonna
He
take
stole
these.
like every
was legit, man.
Baron on the map ever. He's like, oh, they're doing Baron. I'll have that. Thanks, man.
I love this characterization.
Yeah, that's Cuz. He just
You're not
cruises.
doing him enough
He just
justice,
walks really
man.
No,
wide.
he did
Just
play
how-
He was
extraordinarily well.
so
He was-
disappointed
yeah, 'cause
when
he
you
was
said that.
no, but like
He's just
Cuz is a player that has been, I think, underappreciated a lot.
I never.
And then
Yeah.
then he was like, I think by a large margin, over the whole year, the second best jungler in the league, only being eclipsed by Peanut. And obviously, like if Kane
And
is
even
good,
then, like towards the end of the regular season, we would have said that Cuz was better. I think.
sure, yeah.
But he was first All-Pro, right?
He was
Yeah.
first. Okay, but
Yeah.
Their whole team
I
was.
went, yeah.
The five best players.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, not the case.
I
So
think
is
that their
G2,
solo
but they
laners
won,
were
I'm just
definitely.
saying.
Your all-pro voting was just
Yeah.
better.
Oh,
Better,
and-
clearly.
Wait, yeah, no,
So
they're solo
I
laners, yeah.
mean, I went for Peanut because obvious. That's
Yeah.
a whole
And we
different
obviously
discussion. But I
went for
think that
Delight
Cuz,
and-
to me, I just feel like Cuz is underappreciated, and I think he was also one of the few players that in playoffs actually kind of kept it together, where a lot of the KT players were kind of having a rough time. But I do wanted to ask you, Vedi, and that's the one thing that I'd be worried about for G2, and obviously
Scrimming. Worried, they're fine.
scrimming already a lot will help with this. But do you think that they've been able to get enough quality practice against the top tier teams
Oh, yeah.
that you're not worried at all?
No, I mean, like,
I don't know, like, maybe
I
you're
reached out to Rahman and I was like, hey, how's scrims going? And he sent me all of their scrims.
Yeah, okay, so you can't-
Yeah,
okay.
he showed me all their results, and I'm not gonna like leak
No,
anything, 'cause I don't-
obviously.
but it's one of those things where they're definitely getting a lot of practice. Rahman is very. It seems that they took a lot of learnings from MSI. One of the really valuable things that he explained to me was that a lot of the way Kadril's talked a lot about this, other pros have talked a lot about this, but basically the way that Koreans. I think it's more so Koreans than it is LPL, but I'm not entirely positive on this. But basically, you get a trial game. And, like,
Yeah.
you get a
Yeah,
trial
yeah.
scrim block, and if you are underwhelming, you just don't get another one, right? So you kind of have to earn the right to scrim the top teams again. And there's, like, a very strict hierarchy, at least within the LCK, from what I understand. And basically, G2 earned a good reputation from MSI, which means that coming into this tournament, they already got offers
And they earned
to
a pretty
scrim.
good reputation from what I heard in their first few scrims as well.
Yes,
Like,
and
that was
so-
the first thing that I heard when they got off the plane.
So-
Just the Scrimbucks disclaimer. You wanna?
The Scrimbucks is not looking good for a certain team that could do with some less expectation. Let's just say that. So it worked out quite well there.
But because I think that is one of the criticisms that a lot of people will have towards G2 is, as you were saying, they were so clearly the best in the region.
No, Roman has made it very clear to me that they feel the practice has been super, super valuable here. But I also think that their biggest goal in summer was to elevate their consistency. They didn't want their games to just be a skill diff. They wanted their games to be, we're making all of the right choices every single game. And they nearly had a perfect split. I forget who their one loss was. I think it was SK, because they always lose to SK randomly in a best of one.
Best of one.
Yeah. And they did improve. I think their fundamentals are at a pretty high level right now. Mickey earned MVP. He's the only player that's making some of the top 25 lists that people are making, because he really has, like, he's returned to form. He is the best support in Europe. He is very versatile. Engaged supports are meta, so he's thriving right now. Hansama,
Mickey had, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I think he had his best split ever.
potentially. The problem is
He's
I can't
really
remember
good.
2019
This year, like,
well
it
enough
felt
to be able
weird.
to compare it. But
Maybe it was just like that he stood out more compared to his teammates. But,
Maybe.
But it was just, he looked so good. I
he's
thought,
very,
this year.
very smart. He's also a very chill guy. If you ever have the opportunity to speak to him, would recommend. Very chill. But yeah, it's
5 stars on Yelp.
yeah,
for Mickey X.
great guy. 5
There we
stars. Yeah, I think that the biggest concerns that people had around G2 was Broken Blade, and I would say that at MSI he was one of the best performing players.
Yeah, he
And then
was-
also I
was
think that
adequate.
he's evolved as a top laner. That now you can put a lot of trust in to be able to. He's just way more willing to trust himself on other picks. Like, he's kind of taken the Adam approach where he played Swain, he plays Kled into Renekton, he has all these different matchups depending on what he's playing against, while also being able to play the meta stuff, which helps him a lot. And then Caps is the other question. So Caps internationally doesn't always have the best record. Domestically, he's the GOAT. He has the most titles. His titles have been inflated a little bit this split.
Doesn't always have the best record. How many international finals, by the way?
He's
like all of them for Europe. Literally every single one.
I think so. Except
Caps.
it depends if you count the season 1, but
no.
No.
That's fine.
No, we don't.
I know.
I do,
Suche is
but
a
that's
great
okay.
player, but I don't know whether we're putting it in the same
It's
barrel.
just funny to hear not the best international record, but it's like he is the international record for Europe.
Yeah, that's true. But
on
like,
both Fnatic and G2.
But when he was on Fnatic, he got to the finals through EDG, which was Scout, who many believe that he lost to in that series. And then he went through Cloud9, who he typically had the better of Jensen when they played against each other.
Yeah,
and then when he
basically
did it on
always, I
G2, he had Kryptonite versus, Rookie still. And he just...
He's never been the best mid laner in the world.
Yeah.
But he's always been up there.
People have always... people have wanted him to be in the conversation with where Knight and Chovy are right now.
Yeah.
That's what Europe has always wanted
He's
him
never
to be.
been that, yeah.
And the truth is, when we look at international performances, I think there's arguments to be made that Humanoid has had more standout performances against Korean and LPL mid laners than Caps has. And
Really?
maybe that's a bit too much of a bold take.
I think I don't agree with that at all. I would say in lane, maybe I agree. But I feel like Caps at his best, it's nothing to do with his laning. He's every lane at once. Like, he's roaming around the map. He's killing people. When I think of Caps at his best, he's playing.
I mean, yeah, but I would say these days he does that less.
Yeah.
He's not as much of the roaming god that he was, but that's a part of the
I
meta.
guess to me, you were talking kind of like historical, right?
That's fair.
Because you said he.
But I always think about I think about it
it.
strictly from the context of lane. Like, I even think when they rematched Damwon in 2020 and they met in the semifinals, and then Showmaker just made fun of him. And like,
Showmaker was in,
Showmaker.
like that was he was probably the best mid laner in the world in that tournament.
and then 2021, Caps didn't make
That's
Worlds.
relatively
I don't
safe, yeah.
think.
Yeah.
2021 was the year that they got kicked out by Fnatic, and then we had Fnatic, Mad, and Rogue. And then Hans Summer had a great performance that year on his Misfortune. I don't know if you guys remember his Misfortune on Rogue.
Yeah.
I remember.
And
Then
Hans
he
had
went
like
to
the
LCS.
Yeah, and then he went to LCS.
Hans had a, he had a
And now
break
he's back in
here.
LCS.
Yeah.
He
Gap
brought the
year.
bag back to LEC. Yeah.
Yep.
Now he's great again.
Yeah, so I think that, like, I'm a big believer in Caps. I want to believe in Caps. Fans love Caps. Fans also want to believe in Caps.
I think Europeans are also very used to having a large pedigree of mid laners to get behind. Because, like, at the beginning of, like, you think about the dawn of League of Legends, right? And, like, where all of the best mid laners were coming from at, like, the first 3 years, as far as the West was concerned, it was, like, many
Expected
really
Frog
good.
and Alex Ish were
Yeah,
like
right? Like,
generational mid laners.
Seriously, like
was
those
the
names
Perks
still
Caps
come
era.
to mind.
Yeah.
And then
you
there was
know?
the Perks Caps era, yeah. And
Yeah.
then right now it's our top players would probably be Caps, Humanoid, Larson, VTO, and then Larson, VTO aren't here. AD carries is kind of the pool where we're
Vedius
the
here.
most stacked.
I sat with him
VTO
to
is
watch the
literally
BDS
here,
series.
yes.
Actually, sat beside him and Yankos. That was fun.
But yeah, again, I'm not trying to like flame Caps or anything. He had a great summer. He's looking really good right now. Like domestically, he is looking
Sure,
good. But there's always going to be a question mark, like when you go up against a Knight or a Chovy or
The
one
title.
of these really top
Vedius
mid
says
laners.
Caps is trash.
Yeah.
Speaking of European mid laners, you remember the Pharrellon Lord beat them with your Elo? Like what was the shockwave?
The 3K yellow shockwave.
Yeah. Chovy just made it to 2K LP, so
Oh, yeah,
we
first
only
ever
need
dude.
1K more,
Wow.
and he
To
can
say
be on
that-
Pharrellon Lord's level. It's going to be the best.
It's really interesting, like hearing your perspective on it, and it seems like you're focusing so much on Caps as this kind of like
linchpin.
as the linchpin or this weakness that you think is going to be exploited, but it's
I don't know if I would call him a weakness. It's
Well,
more
like
just like that there's
it's
like
do or die by the Caps.
it's not even that. It's just I think that there's skepticism around him as a player when it comes to international.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to flame again. I think he
But
had a great
that
split.
just as a statement to me is just a wild statement.
Really?
He's by far the most successful European player international ever.
So what's happening here?
Successful wise,
It's exactly the
Yeah.
same thing that happened to me earlier. Where Vedius like, G2's good, but I worry about this.
Yeah.
And Azael's just sitting there in the corner, going like,
I think it's different. It's just like I just find it shocking because you're talking about international. He hasn't done that well. I feel like most European fans would be like, what the hell is?
I think
Lil
maybe,
Bro
No, man,
maybe
like,
Vedius is just like being a little bit more recently.
I get
rather
no, but like
than
I
all
get
time.
what you're saying.
But
like,
he's saying back in the day too. You're saying the same
because
thing.
like as a
Every year.
player,
Well, then I disagree also.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
in the top 20 lists, no one could confidently put Caps amongst the best mid laners at the tournament.
Yeah, but you
he was
can't-
always number 5.
You can't put any of these guys there.
But I think that like Mickey has been able to have been throughout his history. Like you talked about when top laners could compete internationally, there was a period in time. I remember MSI 2019. People said that Wonder was the best top laner in the world. That conversation happened. MSI 2019.
Better than the Shy?
I try
That-
to forget
Who was saying
2019.
That
And how much
conversation
were they
happened.
drinking?
I'm just saying that
ain't
like
no way.
Wonder's performance at MSI was rated so highly that conversation happened.
Yeah.
And like my point is that there have been positions in Europe where players have been rated like people. I think it was a bit of a stretch, but people were putting Perks as one of the best Kai'Sa and Xayah players of like in during that year,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, he won MSI.
But like Caps has always struggled to be in that mid lane conversation. He always
Okay.
has. And I just like that's the only part where I think I get a little bit. And again, I'm really not trying to. Caps is fantastic. He's a great
just
player.
interesting
Love
'cause
him.
I don't feel that he has struggled any more than any of the other players.
So, let me.
He had a bad MSI.
let me
Let's
make-
get that clear.
that's
I
He
just
did-
mean like as far as like the world rankings though. I guess it's just you obviously have a different perception, but like I wouldn't have thought that Caps would be lower on that list than any of the other players. In fact, I would have had him higher
Yeah.
because to me, he is the reason that a lot of those teams had that run. I feel like he has that magic where he just makes things happen for his teams.
It's true.
And that's to me what has been like why he is a generational talent. Like I felt like Caps brought Europe, I'm not going to say single-handedly because he's had incredible teammates, but he brought Europe to the forefront of international competition. I felt like this is the guy that made me look at LEC as actual competitors.
Yeah. I
fair
agree.
argument.
I also think that
Fair
like
argument.
with Caps as well, I think there's so much extra pressure added to him because I feel like if bot lane's losing, then Caps, why didn't you roam? You know, if Broken Blade's not getting enough help top lane, but why isn't he top lane? You know, like I feel like there is a lot of pressure that's put on Caps year after year.
It's also, and this applies every time I talk to Emily Rand about any LPL team. Like you see so much more of these players than a lot of other people will, right? So you see them on their games where they randomly just decide to die for no reason in lane like 15 times in the span of a week.
Yep.
So it makes it much harder to. You have so much more material to draw from because you've seen every single Caps game, right?
I've seen a lot of them. Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean,
He's
like
dabbled.
it's gonna. It's,
Yeah,
you've seen a fair amount, right? And I think that always comes into play when you look at these
It's
teams.
so funny that you mentioned just random side
Yeah.
bit. People love calling me G2 biased. And my theory is because I cast every single G2 game that they won for a period of time, and like I didn't cast Fnatic. It was just G2, and I just cast all their games for a really long time. And I was like, well, I'm sorry that I keep casting them, and then when they lose, I'm not there. And so I'm like, I can't like.
And so in your headcanon, they've just won everything. They're only winning.
Yeah.
It's fine. You're sitting next to or
So what
across from a
Vedius is-
T1 bias.
what Vedius
Oh,
is
I'm
getting
Giga
at
T1
Yeah.
bias,
is that
yeah.
the real reason that LEC had all the success is sitting right
I'm
here.
just saying.
I'm glad
I
you're
Who's
didn't
here.
the
cast
real
finals.
star mid laner for the LEC?
No, I mean, like, I really want to come back to this point because, like, Azael, you make a fantastic argument. It's really good. There's a
I'm known
part
for
of me that it's just.
What did you say?
What did it? I can't remember.
God knows,
God
but I'm
knows.
sure it was
really good.
some good shit.
Oh yeah.
I'm just
I
concerned.
was there. I'm pretty sure. I
I'm
remember that.
concerned that people are gonna think that I'm like hating on Caps or like saying that like he's
No.
only ever been bad.
Yeah.
Like
You're very reasonable.
it's more than
No.
just that. No, disagree.
What
MSI
would Cap's dad say if he heard you right
Yeah.
now?
he would be like, "Love you, Betty."
Yeah.
Emoji,
Yeah.
emoji.
Well, he does like emojis.
Maybe some balloons.
He'd retweet this and be like, "Ooh, great take."
We need the thumbnail to be him like lighting Caps on fire or throwing him into the dumpster or something like that.
Stop.
That's gonna be the thumbnail.
And then it follows up with like
We're
Betty's
doing this.
take on
I don't-
like
I don't
G2's
wanna-
gonna smash D plus in the first round and it's not even close.
I don't want us to.
I did say that.
He did say that. I don't want us to gang up on Vedi though, because I want
I
to ask
do.
you.
Yeah.
How is NA
This
looking?
podcast has been going on for
We're
so
looking-
long. Yeah.
How's NA looking this this.
Well, the
sport.
thing about G2 is
I was
They
not
had-
just
they
going to
had
let
a
you
lot of
sit
cool
there
picks.
and make good points about the other regions.
we already know how he's
Okay.
looking. Come on, bro.
No, but maybe
Will
is there no
C9
LPL?
beat
Or is
Mad?
it
My,
like-
my barber
Will
seems to think the
C9
Berserker's
beat
going to do
I'm-
really well.
I'm gonna be honest. Is he though?
I don't
I feel
know.
like he hasn't really
Apparently
done that
he
well
enjoyed
internationally,
barbecue with their
unfortunately.
shared
Hey,
barbecue.
everyone.
In-
Sounds like you're an EU lover right now,
internationally, the AD carry rule
No, I love
does
it.
not have the
That's the
agency to
problem.
like hard 1v9 games.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
you
That,
can't.
that's the thing is that it's like Berserker's really, really talented, but there are so many disgustingly good ADCs in the LPL and the LCK that he's not better than those guys, right? And that it's like at best you're equal if you're really coping, but he probably isn't. So I mean, I think I don't have a lot of hope, unfortunately, for LCS this year. I feel sad saying that, but I think this is probably I felt more hopeful because honestly, like I just don't think I never expected us to be LCK and LPL. At MSI, I actually felt like in spring, I was more excited about the prospect of NA versus EU matchups because I felt that I watched a lot of LCS and a lot of LEC, and I thought that LCS looked better than LEC during the regular season in spring. In summer, I'm gonna be honest, I thought both leagues looked pretty crap. So with G2 kind of being maybe the lone standout. So I don't
And
really
Cats
have
being the best performing mid.
yeah,
Just
to
clarify.
be clear, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm cautiously optimistic that we could be competitive with EU. I don't think there's much chance for being competitive with the Eastern teams. I just feel like all of our teams have kind of fallen off a little bit in summer, with the exception of NRG. And so NRG is kind of that wild card, but because they don't have that international experience, and because they were so up and down throughout the year, it's hard to have a lot of faith in them. But when I look at Golden Guardians, I had a lot of faith in Golden Guardians for the regular season in summer, but they just completely bombed in playoffs. M&S spring to summer, I think, got way worse. I think that's one of the things that really kind of leaves me wondering.
C9,
Yeah, because I feel like they kind of had that step back. They were really good in the regular season still. Obviously, they dropped in finals. That was kind of a blip on the radar because they were very good throughout the rest of the playoffs and good throughout the regular season. But M&S, I think, individually, the best mid laner by far, and I don't care what anyone says about playoffs, but in the regular season was JoJo. I don't think it was close. Then I thought it was Gory. JoJo's not here. Gory had a horrible playoffs and didn't play well in WQS.
No.
M&S got 13.
It actually blew my mind how
It was
bad he looked.
it was
Well, I
it was
know-
really
I
sad.
know what he needed. He needed Peanut.
No, he needed Yasuo.
Yeah,
That's what he needed.
It was sad.
He chose the wrong brother, Chronicler. I told you this.
And then M&S got 13 All-Pro, if I recall correctly, but I thought that was pretty fraudulent. I thought Palafox was robbed. I thought Palafox definitely deserved it. In playoffs, Palafox is by far our best mid. So Energy is the one where I'm maybe like the most like, oh, I don't really know what you're going to get. But Cloud9, I don't really have a lot of faith right now because I just don't think M&S is kind of in form. And Fudge also, I think, had a down year. I think Fudge was not nearly as dominant even regionally as he has been in the past. Because Fudge at his best in NA was just like clearly the best top laner because he's a really good laner and he was just like much better team fighting than the other kind of guys where you can make, oh, well, Summit's maybe is just as good or better at laning. Yeah, but Summit's not nearly as good at actually playing with his team as Fudge was. But Fudge wasn't bad by any means, and neither was M&S. But I just don't think that they had as many of those games where you want them to take over and dominate and give you that hope in the way that I think G2 did regionally, that, okay, these guys are clearly a step above the competition here, and they can actually maybe go up to that next echelon and compete with those next teams.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel that from our teams this year, so that's kind of my concern. I'm excited to see how they do, but like, do I have faith that, you know, especially our soul laners? I'm really worried about the soul laners, so, you know, how they're going to be able to perform, because APA, I think realistically is probably somewhat middle of the pack for LCS. M&S, I think, was, you know, upper middle of the pack for LCS. It's like, are they going to be able to stand up? Fudge had a down year. Is he going to be able to stand up? Dokla was way worse in summer than he was in spring. I was really excited about Dokla in spring. But in summer, even though his team, you know, had this great run, he has his moments, but it just felt like he didn't have those kind of carry performances that he was able to in spring. And even when he was having a good game, it felt like, almost that he wanted it too much, where he'd get himself a lead and then he kind of, go too far and throw it away. You're kind of joking about like NA Doran, right? And so
That is the Doran way.
so it's
It's like,
that's
I've
kind
done
of
enough.
that's kind of my concern. I feel like this is the like least optimistic I've been about LCS in a while.
This is scaring me, man.
Yeah.
I'm a bit sad because I remember MSI. You were full of joy until it started.
He sat down in the
Well-
green room and he said, I think EU's really bad. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you don't think that that's like their worst split ever? And I was like, well, hurtful, but.
I thought at least he looked awful in spring.
And then we never got to play against each other. So the problem is he can say that statement as much as he wants, and
Yeah.
you can't prove him wrong. And
You
I'm
just
like, well,
wait
okay.
until BDS versus GG to
But
really
also,
prove
to
the
be
story.
fair, I mean, GG was. I know those players were super confident, and I think he even said it in interviews at MSI that they thought they would have clapped the EU teams, right? And they were confident coming into this, and then they got absolutely stomped by BDS. So it
I was
doesn't-
confident,
Doesn't necessarily
like,
mean.
all the way up until the end of the draft, game 1, and then everything just went to
I mean,
hell.
I thought like on the dive, I thought that if GG played like regular season GG, that they would 3-0 them.
Yeah.
That they were a much better.
Well, I mean,
team.
you're also disappointed in River, right? Because I remember both you and Kobe agreed that River would
Yeah.
gap.
River was really good in NA. I mean, he both played way different picks, but also just didn't play a good series.
Yeah.
So there's a lot there, but I mean, I think C9 could definitely beat Mad. Mad to me is like so up and down. This is such an inconsistent team that this team
It's true.
can look really good at moments and just look absolute garbage the next. Carzzy to me was the biggest standout by far. I think
True.
Carzzy was like dragging their carcasses across the finish line in a lot of these games.
Correct.
And even internationally, Carzzy could absolutely, make it happen.
Yeah, he has had.
And
a couple
Kazi's
of
also the
moments.
player that on Ezreal twice within a single game eat forward and they lost the game. I think
Yeah.
he did lose one of them.
Ooh, but some of our best players in the world do that all the time.
Yeah, but he
so-
does it not when you think it makes sense.
Oh no, they do it as well.
That's the LPL.
Yeah.
That means he's getting to that level.
Yeah. I
And
was
that's
gonna
why
say, like,
Caps just isn't that good.
I feel like
Let's get back to G2 here.
Back to Cap.
I've seen Ruda do that. Like,
I mean, that's his signature move.
Yeah.
And he
Yeah.
got that one from Imp, who won Worlds and then went to the
There you go.
LPL and
Yeah.
only e'd forward.
Yeah.
He
But-
Way of
e'd
life.
forward so far, he fell out of the LPL, and I don't know what he's doing.
I mean, I think C9 could beat Mad. I don't think TL can beat T1. I mean, to be a 1, anything could happen. But like, am I predicting? No.
Yeah.
Do I think Energy could beat Weibo?
Hey
Maybe.
man, I'm all
Maybe
in on the
Weibo's-
energy. I
Weibo's
want
pretty up and
Weibo to
down.
lose.
And also the reality is Energy.
I'm a Weibo hater.
This
'cause
kind of math doesn't always math. But,
Just casually.
But
Yeah.
Energy in the regular season lost to all the worst teams in the league. They were horrible against these bad teams. You'd watch them, and they play the worst team in the league, and they'd look awful. And then they'd come in against the best teams, and they always would win against the best teams. It's like,
it's Breon.
yeah, they were 9-9 in the regular
The
season.
Blue Show.
And basically all their wins were against playoff teams, like top 4 teams, and all their losses were, these bottom teams. So it was really weird. But they did win the split. They looked really good in playoffs. Palafox especially really stepped it up in playoffs. So I'm excited to see what they can do, but it's not like I can predict them to make quarters. I can't predict any of our teams to make quarters.
The reason I bring up a very short interjection, I bring up Breon is because a lot of non-LCK viewers might not know this. Breon 2-0 Gen G before, like literally the
and
last
D+.
the
Didn't
last
they beat D+
week
as well? I'm
of
pretty sure.
of regular season, they 2-0 Gen G that would then go on to win the split. This is a team that was like ninth and in ninth place.
My favorite player.
That's a
on that
classic
team.
G2 move,
That-
by the way.
yeah,
Just like,
yeah.
oh, you.
But
Just
Yeah.
run
Get back
it
to
for a
Caps.
game. Yeah. Have a good
we don't get back.
All right, so we've been talking for a really long time, so I want to
Yeah.
kind of
So
wrap us up.
long.
But first we're gonna do it like just.
the thing I love about it, by the way, we didn't talk about any matchups. We just
No,
casually
No, that's
kind
what
of
I would
drifted
like
from
to
team
get to that a
team.
little bit, so we can do something that's been
Okay,
written
let's do
down
quick
here.
hits.
We're gonna-
At
quick
least
hits.
Quick
actually,
hits.
no,
I
we
just
haven't.
said
There's
I
not.
think C9 could be Mad. That's a matchup.
There we go. That's a matchup.
talked
That
about
one's
I
been
think
done.
it's
G2
wrong.
D+.
True,
We did that.
Matchup. Boom.
We agreed
Wait,
BDS could beat
G2
JDG.
D+, who did we
right?
think is
Roll the
gonna win
lines.
that
Yep.
one?
Sorry?
Who's gonna win the G2 versus D+?
G2.
Oh,
Yeah, we agreed.
oh, did we?
Yeah.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
I guess it's
You
just-
two literally said
it's written on the wall now.
D+ is
Yeah.
a coin
Are we
flippy
doing
team.
speed predictions? If you
Yeah,
want
we're
to
gonna do
matchups,
speed
we can
predictions.
go.
Yeah, we'll do.
Do you have the list, or do you
I've
want
got the
to
list.
pull up
So,
No, that's not the up-to-date list, right? It's not in order.
It's
doesn't
not
matter if
it
it's not
doesn't
in
need to be
order.
in order.
It
It
doesn't
just
need
needs
to
to
be.
have the matchups.
Hit it.
Matchups need to exist. So Gen G versus Gams is what we're going to do first. We're going to start with the
All in
Gs. I think
favor
that
of
Gen G
Gen G?
might win. All
Gen
in
G.
favor? Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
in
good.
favor.
Yay.
NRG versus Weibo?
I'm voting NRG.
Holy crap! You're the only one, I think.
I'm going Weibo, yeah.
I'm a Theshi. Big fan.
I think it makes too much sense for Weibo to lose the first game. So I'm going.
I'm a
Go
Cadril
Weibo.
hate watcher, so I have to vote for NRG.
No, I get it.
Right. got it.
But I do think that one is close.
If Energy wins their first game, I think that team could go on a little bit of a run. 'cause
They're a vibes team.
They are absolutely
Yeah.
confidence players. If they start playing well, they start playing really well. And if they start playing bad, then they go to the Immortals.
Oh yeah. It's just like they fall off the bottom of the Swiss.
It's
Yeah.
imagine if the second series is KT versus NRG, and it's just like whichever team loses is out.
Oh
of
god, actually if that happens, if KT loses, so this is what I want to talk about next. If KT loses to BLG, I predict that they will just keep losing and fall out of the tournament.
Love that. for
What?
us.
Really?
I'm down.
So like
Yeah.
but like that could happen, right?
We'll
Like,
hold you
this
to
side
it.
of the
We'll hold you
table,
to it.
yeah. But they could just meet and like you could just have
So-
NRG just catches them on their way out and just like peace, brother, as they fly by. Like,
It is. I'm not
You
that much.
doubters, man. It's
I'm not
crazy.
I'm not
I
that
don't know.
much.
KT fans would be like, "Nice, Atlas." Well
This is
done."
actually
That's-
what.
Oh, I
no,
see,
this
that's
is what
true,
they.
that makes
This is what they
sense.
want them to do.
Yeah, that's
Otherwise, they
true.
would get
I
very
forget
upset.
the KT
No,
if I
fans,
have any faith
I
at all,
personally think
then
KT is
I'm
guaranteed
lynched.
to win
I
Worlds.
actually,
They have
yeah,
the
I
five
think
best
KT's
players
up
in the
there.
LCK.
I rate
Yeah.
them extremely
All
highly.
first
Damn
team
it, they're
All-Star.
onto us.
Yeah. BDD, incredible, the top laner. Wow.
Would you have
what a
given them
gamer.
all pro? Perhaps
I would have,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Most of the
I
people
did.
here
In
did
fact,
too.
coming into the matchup versus BLG, all 5 better players, I think. I don't think BLG has a single winning
Is that next
matchup.
Okay, let's keep going down the
Yes.
list.
Yeah.
We need to hit
Keep
the
it
next
together,
one. So,
guys.
G2D plus
I'm in
JDG.
favor
That
of
ship
G2.
just sailed.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
G2D plus.
G2D plus. Yeah, we already did that one.
G2 is
He
winning.
thinks G2, and the rest of us have brains, right?
You know what? I actually am kind of feeling
No,
G2.
actually,
Hell yeah,
I think
Zale,
that's
get
a
on the
flip. I think
train.
it's a flip, and I
It's
think
not
both
a
of
flip.
them.
It's actually very convincing for G2. I'm telling you.
I feel like if
How is it convincing? We haven't seen the series yet.
D plus
D plus, yes.
could not beat any of the teams above them. Could consistently beat the teams below them.
In
Okay.
which league?
Yeah, in the LCK.
Yeah.
But you two have convinced me that KT and T1 are evenly matched and are both fairly mediocre.
Oh, no.
So if
Is
we
that
can
what-
put
No,
G2 on
no,
that
no,
level,
no.
that's the
No. We
No?
can't,
No,
we
no,
can't do
no,
that.
no.
Yeah.
We're definitely not doing that.
I do. I could 100% see G2 win. I think I'm with Atlas. I think it's a very close matchup. But D
I don't
plus,
think it's close.
at least. I mean, it might not be. We'll see. But I think
Depends what the
that
Scrimbucks say.
No,
because
no,
if
no.
they're-
They're all liars.
Based
They're all
on
fake
it's
news.
not close. The
They're all
Scrimbucks
lying.
are.
No, no, I'm not. I'm
I was
not actually basing
I'm
this
actually
on.
like,
sure,
I'm ready
like
to
every
agree with
year
Vedius
since
here.
2018. Yeah, because
I'm ready to
I know
agree.
what
We're
you're-
doing
I'm down.
speed match, so like
Speed,
I
yeah.
can give you,
Yeah,
I can give you
okay.
legitimate
D plus.
reasons.
Okay, so
but
we're gonna
we're
go-
doing
People,
speed,
people
yeah.
disagreed, so we could talk about this
I
one
think
if you want.
this being like G2 being the team that Vedi has picked for LEC, I think we're very happy to pick G2 as the team here, right?
I'm going D plus specifically because of the history between the two teams.
Last thing I'll say on G2, I'm super interested to see what they're going to do with their drafts because they cooked so hard
Yep.
in the LEC playoffs. It was super fun to watch. Fiddlesticks and Eve and Kled
gonna be double
and
cook.
Yone and all
So-
this stuff, but that could also turn into Golden Guardians cooking too hard, right? You know, that's the only concern.
I know G2 came into this tournament assuming they were playing against Dam1. Their whole strategy. No
Really?
joke. They talk about it
because they were like,
talk about
that's
it
the
on their-
hardest matchup. Let's just prepare for that one.
No,
that what
I mean, but they talk about it in their predictions thing. You know, when they do the live draw watch.
Yeah, yeah.
They sat there and
Because
talked
they
about.
always play each other.
They assumed that they were going to get
Oh,
down
that is
one.
actually-
They just so like they didn't scrim down one at all. They have not scrimmed any games against down one,
All
and
right,
their
I'm
whole draft
hard
strategy-
pivoting.
As-
I think G2's probably just going to win Worlds.
yeah,
I agree.
but it's
That's
I
huge brain.
just to like give some actual analysis. I think that they
no,
are.
no, don't.
Okay,
No, we
fine.
don't
We
need
can
that.
move on. That's fine. Okay, cool.
we should
No
move
big
on
deal.
to
All
the
good.
big one. T1 versus TL. Two acronyms
Well, we know
that
that
look
you're
very
on Liquid
similar.
side.
I'm on the liquid side, obviously, because like
I'm
Pioshik
favorable.
there once, he can do it
Yeah,
again.
I'm
I'm
yeah.
for T1.
I'm in favor of T1.
I mean,
for this
Pioshik
one.
is the reigning world champion.
And he did beat.
Wouldn't it be
Right?
so funny if Pioshik does it again?
It would actually be hilarious.
It would actually be.
It would
hilarious.
also be very Pioshik because that's
Yeah.
who he is.
How
as a
did he
person.
rate amongst junglers at the end of summer?
He was actually pretty good. He had a way better summer.
Oh, that's bad news.
He had a
Yeah.
way
Well,
better
no, that's
summer.
terrifying because like he's never good
he
at
was
the end
the-
of a
he was the
domestic
third
season.
best.
He was the third best.
It was Blabber and River, and there was some arguments among people on who was best there, but most people would say Blabber.
Was he even top 10 going into Worlds last year?
Well, was he the best on his team?
That's
Not
what
even
I'm
sure whether
saying.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Would you predict TL if Barrel subbed in?
Yeah, he would.
I have to. Yeah. So there is one rule, and Barrel's not
We're
even
subbing out
bloody
Corey
here.
JK. Barrel's
You
going
guys-
in.
And
Why
if
would you
Barrel is
ask him
in,
that?
if Barrel is in a game, he's winning worlds. Okay. If he's in it until he's lost, and then he's completely out of
so
contention, which he has.
There were,
Okay.
there
It's
was
done.
like 3 pog states of Atlas going like, Barrel's making it to Worlds again, and I had to...
Okay,
Wait, but hang
so
on, hang on. Wait,
it's T1.
very quickly.
Yeah.
Are you
Yeah,
writing
it's
this
T1.
down? Actually, can I? have
No,
a
no.
pen? I want to write down all of our predictive wins so
That
that we
sounds
can then
fun.
have some fun.
Yeah,
with
yeah,
what
yeah.
happens
Alright.
afterwards. So
Let's
who did
do
we
it.
go?
So we got-
for?
I mean,
We
we
did-
go with the.
We'll go with majority. We'll go with majority. Yeah.
So we have
Genji
Genji.
first one.
Is it Weibo or NRG that we went for?
We went
in the end?
Weibo majority, I think.
Like Weibo
3-1.
majority?
yeah. So we'll do Weibo.
So
And then
Weibo.
G2,
And then
G2.
G2,
JDG.
and then JDG.
We haven't even discussed it, but I'm going to assume.
I'm gonna. Yeah.
We're going to go
How dare
T1. Are we going to go C9 over Met? That was what we agreed at the
I have to
end,
predict
right?
NA for something. I need a win.
I mean, I'm gonna predict Mad, so
I'm
it's up to
going
you two,
C9.
really, whichever you guys want to believe.
I mean, I do. I mean, Fudge is from my
I'm,
country.
I love Berserker, but I'm going historical. I'll go mad.
What?
What
Hang
do
on,
you mean
historical. I was
historical?
gonna say.
Matt loses all the time, and I
Matt
got
loses
by
all-
EG,
Matt
and they
sucks.
lost to
Yeah, and it's-
TL.
and it's the first
I
bit
know.
of the tournament
It's
that
the
they're
very-
in.
yeah.
It's like everything
can't
is
even say, like,
historically
I'm going
everything is
historical.
yeah.
I think Loud's gonna win Worlds.
What I mean
Even in
is
best of one,
I
they
know.
lost.
What history is bruv reading?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think what he meant was Cloud9. I think he meant Cloud9. That's
what
right.
I'm
He's
saying-
jet lagged, guys. Calm down.
All right.
Okay,
no,
explain, Chronicler.
so
I mean, I'm definitely saying C9. My
Okay,
Bob
go
is
C9.
cousin
What
is
about
on
you?
that team.
Okay, so historical. I was referring specifically to EU versus NA.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that
Okay.
BDS was going to be worse than GG, and that didn't happen at all. So I'm just going to assume that 2 seats that should be relatively close in strength. I'm just going to default
Well,
to.
for the purpose of the
the Alliance.
exercise-
Start with rock
Ah,
paper
okay.
scissors.
Okay.
Rock.
Wait, on 3 or after?
So you go rock paper scissors shoot.
Okay.
Yeah.
After 3.
Yeah. Rock
1,
paper
2, 3.
scissors shoot.
Nice.
Oh, wait. Does that mean Mad?
Mad
that
at
means
making
mad.
it through in our hypothetical
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
All right. And so BLG
In the most
versus
analytical
KT.
way
Holy
possible.
crap.
BLG versus KT.
I'm gonna go BLG.
I'm going BLG.
BLG.
Beautiful. Love that. Love that for KT.
4 for
This is-
BLG.
This is
KT, so 4 for BLG, so write down KT.
He's on
That's
to
what
us.
it means.
For the purpose of the exercise, we'll write down KT.
Yeah.
Yeah. And LNG or LNG or Fnatic.
LNG.
I mean, my heart says Fnatic, but my brain says LNG.
LNG.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with LNG.
But okay, I'm going to pose a question. Do we think that the crazy upset in a best of one that inevitably is going to happens here or in round 2?
I mean, it's probably here.
What are you defining as a crazy upset? Is
I'm
any
talking-
Eastern
Goes
team
against
losing
expectations.
to
Swiss,
any
you're not
Western
supposed to
team
get
upset?
there, right?
So I'm talking like GAM beating Gen G. I'm not talking Energy winning over Weibo.
I feel like
Did you actually
I feel
cross
like
out BLG? That is illegal.
Yeah,
I feel like
KT
any
Ah, no,
any
no, no.
Western
Oh,
the
team
exercise.
Oh, God.
outside of G2 beating an Eastern team is an upset.
Is it an upset? I
Yeah.
think in best of one.
I actually think so.
I don't know if that's true. Okay, but
No, I'd agree with Isaac on that one.
okay.
Yeah.
When, like you said, LCK for all 4 seeds always
Sure.
make it out, right?
So
It's true.
NA hasn't
you think
made
it's
it
going to
out.
happen this round or the next one?
Well, the next one
There's
is
always-
it's so
I-
much like
there's
it's Swiss, right?
always- I know.
So being able to call it an upset,
does- but it doesn't
in
matter.
Swiss
I think we'll
gets
get.
harder
I
and
think we'll
harder
get
and
an
harder.
upset based on my definition. We'll get an
Yeah.
upset. in
We
the
didn't
first.
talk about
think
it,
you might be
but I
right.
do want to say Humanoid versus Scout is a matchup I personally am very excited about. I
Yeah.
think that it's going to be 2 fantastic mid laners going against each other, and even if that won't be the crux of that matchup, I think that those 2
Yeah.
players is
And
And
most
Humanoid just-
importantly,
he just
Fnatic doesn't
finds
have
the
caps on their
angles,
team,
yeah.
so they're going to do much better.
especially from the
Yeah.
mid lane,
Mid lane,
Isaac.
yes.
Yes.
All right. So we all go
when you
LNG.
compare to Inferior,
I think
you're
we're-
being
I think
mid laner.
LNG, but I think that Vedius
No, we'll
might be
write
onto
LNG
something.
for the purpose of the
And
exercise.
then
Yeah.
the next row is completely random.
Okay,
right?
so what we're gonna do is
no
I'm
cheating
gonna,
anymore.
can someone get
No.
a random
Yeah, it's
number
random.
generator for me?
Yeah,
Sure. Which
Okay, what do you
numbers would how many numbers do you
Wait,
want?
I'm missing a T.
number.
Gen G, Weibo, G2, JDG, Mad, KT, LNG,
T1
T1.
T1.
Yeah.
over TL.
Okay, what do you need
Yeah.
between 1 and
So
8?
1 and 8, yeah. And so what
Whoa,
we gotta
did you
do-
write T1 or T lowercase l?
Okay.
Okay, so all we're gonna do.
Railing Atlus.
You're gonna roll, pick a number.
We got 6.
Okay, 6 is KT.
And we got. Wait, it's giving me 6 over 5.
6 versus 5 is KT versus Mad.
Okay, and then we got 4
Okay, so we got JDG.
versus. We went 6 again, so it can't be that. Now at 1.
1 Genji.
Oh,
Okay.
the banger.
And then we got. I have to keep 3
3. So G2
versus 8.
T1, and then the last matchup has to be Weibo versus LNG.
Damn. Your
Second
Your
round.
random number generator's
Yeah,
dope, dude.
Ship it.
You gotta
Lock
in
it
fact,
in.
Hang on.
We've got this on tape, right? Why don't we just play this for the draw if we get the
So I'll
predictions
do the
right?
same
We already
thing.
know we're gonna get the
So we can now do the lower bracket as well, because that's also the really interesting one. So I'll
Oh,
just
wait, we have
quickly
Caps winning, so we can't. We have to,
stop.
we have to
Stop it.
redo it.
Yeah, so
He's never gonna
Gam,
live this down.
NRG. God, so many people in the comments being like, "Why does Vedius hate Caps? What did he do?"
We're
gonna-
Like, why did they- why do
You guys should hear what he says about
exist
Caps.
yet, yeah.
You should hear what he says about Caps when we're not on
Yeah,
camera.
you're right.
Oh,
No,
true,
I was-
actually.
Stop.
We're gonna
You've
be-
seen the cuts.
We're
Oh,
gonna be
God.
casting like a quarterfinal D plus versus
plus,
G2. We're just gonna
changes.
bully him.
yeah. C9,
Those are banger matchups.
BLG,
So this is the benefit of Swiss,
Fnatic,
right?
and then TL. All right, can you roll again for me?
Sure. All right, we got 5,
5 is C9
8,
versus TL.
7
7 is Fnatic
versus 1.
versus Gam.
And we got.
That's
did I already
orange.
do 6
No.
I like the
Six?
color
BLG
coordinated matchup.
versus 4.
Fam.
versus BDS,
Okay, and then whatever the last one is set.
which would be D plus versus. No, I've got C9 NRG.
Yeah.
D plus versus NRG.
Oh,
So-
God.
That's a banger.
Oh, no, it needed to be KT. That needed to be how it worked out.
That would have been. I mean, if it was KT, it would have been KT versus BDS.
Mm.
But
Oh, God.
So you can roll into the regional matchups.
yeah, BDS has had a horrible draw so far. They've got JDG to start into BLG next. And
Taking
there's-
one for the teams on the way out, you know?
That's crazy. That's so hype.
But the
I mean,
upper
the-
bracket
like,
is
the set-
so dope.
Just in general, look at all those matchups, even the lower bracket ones, and like
Almost any mix of them. That's the thing with this system.
yeah.
If the favorites win, you're gonna have Titans right away.
And how quickly you get to some of these incredible matchups is really cool, considering the fact that we're
Yeah.
expecting
And
these teams to be in form.
again, we're gonna have to draw. Like I assume Thursday night, like after the first round
Yeah.
is done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
And then we
You
like
go to bed
get
thinking
ready
like,
for
Yeah,
all
I'm
the
gonna
matches
bring
are
Vedius'
gonna-
laptop and I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna go up on stage. I'm gonna flip it around.
What do you mean? We're not going to reshoot this.
Yeah.
We don't have the time. We just use this.
Just air this.
Yeah, it's easy.
No, that's really hype. And I'm
And
sad.
then
in the
you
lower-
can even go further, and then like we'll get even more crazy matchups afterwards.
And
as
it'll
well.
all be best of threes.
God,
after
imagine if
this as
G2
well.
just ran the LCK gauntlet, D plus into T1 into potential KT.
I mean,
Well, you could.
they've been a lot of those teams, different times, but still.
Yeah.
But that would have been 2019 all over again. And then people can be like, 2019 is back.
It's actually really interesting how it's all going to like when we get to the best of threes. That's going to be my favorite part is like seeing who
Of
sort of
course
like.
it is, Mr. LCK.
No, I'm saying like I don't care which side. Like the best of threes, even at the bottom, are going to be really
No, they
really
will
cool.
be
To
nice.
see, like,
I don't know if we've had enough content. We can have the discussion about best
No,
of
yeah. No, please.
I'm sure we got time, right?
That's actually not what I meant.
It's-
And I do want to have like oh no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm not. I don't want to talk about
does
best of
Caps
three,
do
best
best?
of one.
Best of threes is records. Pretty good.
You know, in shows like Archer and Arrested Development, where you have running gags and they just keep going, and then they stop being funny, but then they loop
becomes
around and they're
funny again, yeah.
they're funny again.
You just have to get
We've
through
run that circle like 15
It's always the
times.
Peter Griffin grazing his knee scene.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Every joke
Yeah, the
for
only
me
way-
is that. Like
The
I'm
only
just
thing-
like just kill it.
The
You
only
have
way
to
you got to
kill it.
round this out now is like I sit there and go, how long has the podcast been going? You go, 1647. Wait, no.
I think you just did it for
Yeah.
us. So I think we're probably good to go.
Yeah.
And I think we also need to get you gentlemen to bed so that you can potentially rehearse tomorrow and then we can get Worlds underway. So thank you so much for watching the very first Divephoria State episode. And we'll see you for more.
Cam over,
A little bit later on. He can
Oh, that
have a look
camera.
into my camera.
Did you-
This might come in. Come like this.
That's the grip camera over there.
Let's try and angle ourselves. I don't know whether Ian can do anything with that. He probably can't.
I
But
love ruining editors' lives.
yeah, I know. But that'll do it for us. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.